Yes.
The lead Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1543 of the War News stream. And tonight we have an absolutely packed stream full of news. We've had a lot of stuff happening today. We've seen that Crimea has been exploded under a major Ukrainian attack, and I mean a very large attack. We're also seeing that Moscow is also under attack directly by Ukrainian jet drones, and that's happening literally right now live as we speak, and we'll probably have more news on that throughout the stream. And also, Ukraine has just deployed large forces to the Belarus border after they are worried that Russia might attack from the north into Ukraine. And we have also news out of Iran as well, and a big explosion in Israel. But it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news from around the world, as we have been able to hear of significant developments within the area of Ukraine, as the Ukrainian armed forces have been laying down what we can only describe as one of the largest and most conclusive drone attacks of the war so far to date. The Ukrainian armed forces have been able to land significant hits within the area of the Crimean Peninsula, and specifically the Russians' former headquarters for the Black Sea Fleet, Sevastopol, with significant explosions and strikes being reported around the surrounding area, and air defense fire that can only be described as some of the largest that we've seen since the last air raid on Berlin in 1945. We've also been able to additionally hear that around the area of Moscow, at this very moment on air right now, the Moscow air defense perimeter is being overwhelmed by a large Ukrainian drone attack of its own, with multiple spottings near the areas of Podolsk, the area of Chesty, and also Kukuchkino, and also the area of Zelenograd within the northwest. We've also been able to report that at this moment, one drone has been confirmed to have impacted the water somewhere around the town of Mia Kanino. I'm not making these names up, by the way. These are literally just the names. And that is approximately about 9 miles away from the Kremlin, which is giving us a decent understanding that these drones have not only made it well past the S-300 and S-400 air defense perimeter on the A-113 on the very edge of the city, but they're now making it well within the Pantsir S-1 air defense ring parameters, and are making it very close to the mobile fire groups that are the last line of defense in central Moscow before these drones make their way to the Kremlin. We've also been been able to hear of other significant developments as well, as Ukrainian drones have not shown any mercy or quarter to other Russian major industries and infrastructure throughout the country over the course of this day, with a string of destruction being made all the way from Ryazan to Perm, a stretch about 700 miles long, and we can see significant damage to industrial and infrastructure sites all the way from Moscow to Perm. We've also been additionally able to hear that there has been further confirmation that the Russian corvette the Bulyan was destroyed yesterday in the Caspian Sea at its mooring at the town of Kaspisk, and we've also gotten additional reports that within the area of Pianogorsk, it appears that a gas station has exploded today, vaporizing an entire city block with it. I'm not kidding on that. Y'all have to see the footage to believe that one. We've also been able to hear as well that while these major drone attacks by Ukraine are currently ongoing at this moment and are causing damage that is almost indescribable in some aspects, we've also seen some major developments within the Middle East as well, as the President of the United States is now stating that this was only the calm before the storm and that strikes are going to be beginning once more on Iran. Right now, it does appear that the United States is attempting to take the wise action of attempting to form a coalition of nations within the region that will join in and assist the United States in their strikes, including the United Arab Emirates. We've also been able to see significant airlifts still ongoing throughout the area today, and we have been able to see that the Russians' IL-76 of the Ministry of Emergency Services, after a brief stop in Dubai, has taken off once again after conducting its little tour of Somalia and the UAE. We do have to indicate that this action by the Russian Federation in personnel evacuations was mirrored identically in the week before the prior actions that opened up on February 28th that started the war that we're currently still having to deal with at this moment. There was also an explosion that appears to have vaporized the entirety of the army depot near to the town of Bet Shemesh, and right now the Israelis are claiming that it was some sort of a weapons test, but considering that every single example I've seen from satellite photography is showing that it's a large ammunition depot in this area of the country and not really a testing range, I have my doubts that this was a test. It also appears that whatever test this was, it formed a large mushroom cloud, and that is definitely not close to being a rocket launch. We can say that for sure. We have been able to hear as well that there has been explosions within Tartus, Syria along the coast, and right now we don't have really any good reports to go off of as to why that happened. And we've also been able to get some footage from AFRICOM, which is the African Command Area responsibility of the strike that was conducted last night on al-Duqi, who was the right-hand man of ISIS. Largely the strike did kill him pretty much outright. We've also been able to hear that Taiwan rebutted the United States position that was made yesterday, saying that Taiwan is a sovereign and independent country, and the United States can either be with them or against them. And we've also been able to hear that the Chinese are now announcing that the U.S. and China will be growing trade relations in the future amongst each other. And we also have some further significant news coming out of the United States of America that is not exactly great on the oncoming shortages of raw materials pertaining to the petroleum industry. But we actually have breaking news coming out at this moment right now. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so right now we are tracking the active attack on Moscow right now. It looks like we are seeing confirmed hits either right on the perimeter of central Moscow or somewhere around that area. We're seeing right now it appears to be smoke rising from a series of buildings. And sadly, I have not had a chance to geolocate it just yet. But what you're looking at right there in that video is apparently one of those fires. And here's another one. And also it appears to be a different area in this series of videos we're looking at right now. And we're also seeing... We're seeing actually multiple. I have another video showing another fire as well. So it appears to be several confirmed hits right near Moscow. So this appears to be a pretty large attack. And Moscow is really not defending very much against it. Even with all that air defense there, they're getting overwhelmed.
And it just certainly does appear that they're getting overwhelmed. I'm trying to do some quick geolocation here at the moment because we can see that this appears to be a singular large plume of thick black smoke that's coming from the area. We can see some industrial chimneys of some sort of a factory here on the left side of screen, which is giving us an indication that this video was filmed near to an industrial site close to some residential high-rises. But this fire is originating somewhere within the periphery of Zeleningrad and the larger forests nearby. It may also be as far south as Podolino, but at the moment we're still trying to get better geolocation on this. And right now, folks, I would say that while we can't really sit back and take all the time that we would like to at the moment to be able to find out exactly where this is, I would generally assume that this fire that we're watching right now is south of Zeleningrad and somewhere in between there and the Shemechevo Alexander S. Pushkin International Airport, somewhere within this area right here around Podolino, Golikovo, or Zlodikubla. I would assume that it's generally within that area.
Also, by the way, get this. Apparently, the mayor of Moscow is now sending out an emergency alert. Apparently, it looks like on Telegram, which I thought they weren't supposed to be using anymore. But it looks like the mayor of Moscow is reporting that allegedly, and this is coming from the Russians, so take this as you will. They're reporting that 114 Ukrainian drones have been shot down amidst a large attack against the city and the suburbs of Moscow this morning. But he does not say that the attack is over. He's apparently saying it's ongoing. And also, by the way, keep in mind, the Russians love to exaggerate. They have probably not shot down 114 drones. I would highly doubt that. Also, the videos we're getting here showing explosions and fires around Moscow suggest that he's once again probably lying as well. So it does appear to be a pretty big one, especially for the mayor to be weighing in as well. So we're definitely watching this one closely.
If we're taking a rough stab at where that fire is currently coming from, south of Zelenograd, it appears to be about 16 miles away from the Kremlin. So this is showing that drones have once again made it pretty well within the air defense perimeter at this point and are being engaged and possibly shot down within the Pantsir ring of the air defenses around Moscow, because there's actually 3 separate layers to this, with the last line of defense literally just being technical-based machine guns in central Moscow. The medium-range ring is the Pantsirs, which are just outside of the inner ring of Moscow, and then here on the very farthest outskirts of Moscow on the E-115 and the M4, you'll see that there are some S-300s and S-400s. So we can confirm that these drones have made it through the S-300 and S-400 air defense ring, and they are becoming dangerously close to passing through that medium-range air defense ring of the Pantsirs and making it into the last line of defense, which are the mobile fire groups inside of central Moscow. So this attack appears to be overwhelming Russian air defenses at the moment, and we'll be, of course, getting more breaking news and developments of this on air. But to quickly show you all what we've been seeing right now in our current breaking news, we do have a myriad of clips, including this one here, most likely filmed from Zelenograd or one of the surrounding suburbs of Moscow, showing the major fire that's now broken out from one of the successful Ukrainian hits within the metropolitan area of the city.
Also, by the way, another important detail, this is a multi-pronged attack. Like, Ukraine is not just using their normal drones to attack Moscow. We've been hearing reports, and also we saw a video of a jet drone going into Moscow. So it appears to be conventional drones, jet drones, and I haven't heard any reports of missiles being used yet. It appears to be an entirely drone-based attack, but we're waiting to see, though, because, we don't have all the details just yet, because it's happening literally right now as we're on the air. But it's definitely a very much drone attack, definitely for sure. That is confirmed.
Quite a large and very one. We haven't seen any cruise missiles or ballistic missiles being used yet by the Ukrainians, and I generally don't believe that any of those were used in this attack so far, so they're primarily just using propeller and jet-based drones in their attacks against Moscow from what we can see at the moment. But here are some additional pictures. It looks like all of these pictures are just differing angles of the smoke plume that's currently rising south of Zelenograd. As we can see, this one here looks to be seeing it from its southern face, looking northwards towards the smoke plume, where we're not seeing the full length of it, we're just seeing the front end of it, which is the narrowest and smallest part. And we can also see this last video here that we were looking at originally, showing what appears to be an industrial site here to the left, a construction site towards the front with a large amount of high-rise cranes being built to help assist the construction, and then we can see the fire off in the distance in what appears to be a forested area, which is what we're assuming to be southern Zelenograd, or getting closer to the inner rings of the Moscow metropolitan area. So this attack is already making it pretty deep in, and moving us on out of this breaking news and getting us into all of the other breaking news that we already have on the map, because we have a lot more to show y'all, and this is not the only drone that's made it this far into Moscow. We've actually been able to see a drone that appears to have made it roughly about 9 miles away from the Kremlin, which is the closest one that we've been able to confirm at the moment has made it that near to the inner city area of Moscow. But moving us on and into our major breaking news, we're actually going to be staying in Moscow for a brief moment to be able to cover all of the attacks and actions that have been unfolding over the past 40 minutes, and then we're going to be moving on down into Crimea, because these attacks happened largely just within the past 3 hours, and both of them are some of the largest ones that we've seen so far in the amount of firepower that the Ukrainians are levying against the Russian Federation at this point. Moving us on into the Moscow city area, we have been able to see that within the Zelenograd area there has been some confirmed strikes like we were seeing just a moment ago, and this was largely the birth of the billow of smoke that we're now watching south of Zelenograd at this moment right now. So here is our first video of 3 showing the impact and subsequent immediate fire that was caused by one of the Ukrainian attacks. We can actually hear the drone coming in, and we can see it right there. And it is an FP2 or a Luyuti long-range drone. So we can generally confirm that this one's propeller-driven, most likely one of the longer-range variants, although Moscow isn't that far away. The longer-range variants seem to be the commonplace ones in the modern day for the armed forces of Ukraine to use, regardless of the distance. But we can see it diving in on its target and hitting it just over the distance. Weirdly enough, not a massive sounding explosion coming from it. And it
also, where was the air defense? Like, I didn't hear air defense, like, unless I missed it. Was there small arms fire at least?
There was some light machine gun fire, but very little of it, maybe one or two of them in the whole area.
Yeah, that's very interesting because, you know, Moscow, like we went over this just about a few days back. We know when the whole Victory Day parade was happening on May the 9th. Now, Moscow has moved all kinds of air defense around literally every single ring road perimeter of the city. They've moved pretty much the entire country's air defenses to protect just the capital of Moscow. And even with that, we're seeing stuff still getting through. So, I mean, I'm not sure at this point how efficient Russian air defense is because even with all that, they're not stopping it.
You know, I think I'm getting an idea, Matthew, why Putin's dacha up there just north of the city has like 30 Pantsirs and 2 S-400s at it. It's because they're generally assuming that most of that's not going to work, and they'd be lucky if they even hit a couple of drones if that place is attacked. That might be the reason why we're seeing such large groupings around critical locations. But here is our closest up picture so far, folks, of the major fire that we're watching right now. And as we can all see, because this is something very important to point out, whatever this thing is hit, it is some form of a factory. We don't know what type of factory it is yet. According to Exile Nova, they state that it's an attack on the Elma Industrial Park, but we do not know the exact type of factory that was hit inside the industrial park, but it is confirming that the Ukrainians have apparently picked this out, we would assume, as a strategic target to be hit within the city area, and this drone was beelining for this target the entire time. We also got this security camera footage here letting us hear the explosion. Any minute now. That one hit a high rise, actually.
Yeah, it did. That was that basically caused an earthquake from the sounds of it.
I would say so. We don't know why that one hit the high rise. It might have been electronic warfare interference. The Ukrainians may have lost control. Or we have found this out from time to time, although this is exceptionally rare. Usually it's more so electronic warfare than anything. Sometimes the Ukrainians actually do target residential buildings because some of the apartment buildings are actually being operated by the FSB. And usually whenever attacks like those happen, they always follow up these sorts of attacks with undoubtable proof that the FSB is using an apartment within a high rise as some sort of a meeting center or some sort of a office of operations to some extent. And we have seen some of these hit within the Moscow area before, but once again, folks, we do not know, and we don't want to give the benefit of the doubt, and we also don't want to go over a way to make it sound like the Ukrainians attacked a residential building without cause. We actually don't know what the reason for this one was yet, so hopefully we'll be able to get some more information on that here within the future. We've also been able to see outside of that area of Zelenograd that near to the city area of Zelenograd, there was also more proof that drones were making it in fairly significant numbers this deep into the air defense perimeter. This is about 15 miles in the air defense perimeter and only 16 miles to the Kremlin. So Zelenograd is about roughly at the halfway point through Russia's air defenses from the very beginning of them at the exterior area of the city to the inner area of the city right at the heart of the Kremlin. So here's this clip showing the amount of drones coming in as well. And we can see that an air defense missile has already exploded in the sky overhead. And we can actually see it right over. So this is actually a little interesting, and this is giving us an idea of the engagement range of the Pantsir S-1. That is a Pantsir S-1 on that hill right there, and it looks like it only was able to identify and shoot down the drone when it was about 2 miles or less from the air defense system. Mind you, Pantsir S-1s are stated by Russia to be able to engage air targets around 15 to 20 miles away. This one appears to have only engaged the drone 2 miles out or less. It might even be 1.5 miles. So this might be showing us the Russian radar systems are not as, well, obviously they're not as good as advertised, but this might be giving us an idea of how good they actually are, and their radars are apparently so crude that they can only get an actual targeting image and also a firing solution at about 1.5 miles or 2 miles away at the farthest possibly. But we can see that smoke plume there, and then we see them looking right at the air defense. Big shout out to the Russian citizens, by the way, for violating OPSEC in every single regard. Got to give them a huge
Oh
shout out for that.
no, they're not violating anything. This is just this is being a good Russian citizen to show the Ukrainians where their hits are landing. But honestly, I think the Russian air defense prefers to hit citizens instead. I think it really has a hankering for the Russian civilians versus the actual targets coming in.
Man, like the Russian air defense battery operator, Commander, should we fire at the incoming Ukrainian drones? Civilian building. Fire. Man, it's like,
Yeah, honestly, man, like the worst hits these days are coming from the Russian air defense hitting the Russian apartment buildings. That's probably the worst of the explosions have been the air defense.
honestly, man, you're not wrong. But listen to this. There's some sort of additional explosion that happened in the clip. We can't see it on film, but we can hear it there at that point. We hear some sirens going off in the surrounding area as the camera person continues to look around, trying to see what's going on outside of their place. We can actually see an explosion out there in the distance once again. Once again, this is about only 2 miles away from the air defense system. So this is starting to become a fairly consistent trend that Pantsers might only have a usable radar range of 2 miles. And now we can hear the explosion of a second Ukrainian drone being shot down over the city.
They actually did create a debris situation, actually. That will fall down wherever. That looks like maybe the forest over there or something.
Oh, you hear a third one now. And there it is, actually. We can see it right there.
Damn. Flying straight in. I guess it's just a game of quantity. I guess if you can send enough in, you'll simply just overwhelm the defenses like they've clearly done.
Oh, and there it went.
Oh.
So that is the third Ukrainian drone that this Panzer shot down, but once again, all of them are being shot down at a range of less than 2 miles from the air defense system. And I'm saying this kind of, folks, like it is a revelation, because it kind of is, because up until now, we've actually not really had a good idea, even over the past 4 years, of where in the world can a Panzer's radar pick up a drone at the maximum distance. And it looks like the answer is 2 miles or less, somewhere around there. So it is nowhere close to the 15 to 20 mile advertised radar detection range that the Russians keep lauding around the world whenever they sell a Panzer to anybody. So this is giving us an idea that if the Panzer's range is only about 2 miles and its advertised maximum range is 20, which means that this current air defense range that this thing can actually gauge at is 10% of what's actually advertised. If we took that same assumption for every Russian air defense system, because their radars are not competent enough to be able to pick up targets at long ranges, that means that the S-400, which is supposed to have an air defense range distance of about 110 to 120 miles, might only have an air defense interception distance of about 11 to 12 in reality, if that was applicable to all air defense systems across the board in the Russian Federation.
Oh, another one.
A fourth one, actually. This one appears to be out of range of this Panzer.
You can barely see it. Like, it's somewhere out there. You can hear it, but I can't really see it.
And moving us on out of this clip, before we do, though, I saw someone throw in a great statement. This is actually an interesting one. The muddled-headed analyst said, it's possible the detection range is 15 or so, but the engagement range is only 2. And that could be a point, like, especially if the missiles are not capable enough to reach out that far. But the Panzer S-1's missiles are designed to be able to have a comparable range to the radar system. The radar system can actually pick up targets about 30 miles away. The missiles, in theory, should be able to reach out to about 15 to 20. And what we're seeing here is that the radar apparently can't pick up targets farther than 2 miles away. So we would believe, because we have seen in the past, that Panzer air defense missiles could reach 15 to 20 miles easily, but the radar can't pick anything up farther away than 2, which is completely, largely rendering the system inoperable, beyond it being a quite literal point-based air defense system, and almost operating just like a man-pad carrier, and not even a competent one at that. They probably would have a better luck at it firing off man-pads like Iglas and Strelas than they would this Pantsir, because the Pantsir requires a radar lock. Man-pads necessarily don't. But outside of that, a lot of people are talking about these attacks that are currently ongoing in Moscow, which we have only touched the tip of the iceberg on, by the way, folks. There is a lot more that we have coming out of Moscow at the moment. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this attack right now, and what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so Ukraine is now ramping up major attacks on Moscow, and this is happening quite frequently, especially compared to what Ukraine was previously doing. They're starting to hit Moscow quite often. I mean, I think we just covered the last one like a handful of days ago, and now it's already happening again. And this one's a pretty large one. We're seeing drone after drone after drone going at the Moscow defense perimeter. So is this a wise strategic move for Ukraine to keep it up at this rate? Because, of course, Moscow is the seat of government. That's where Putin's at. And if anything is bound to get Putin to escalate, it'll be attacking Moscow. So is it wise? 77% said yes, keep hitting Moscow more. That's the way to go. 12% said no, Putin will probably end up hitting Kyiv next, probably the important targets inside the capital of Ukraine. And 6% said it won't really make much of a difference. And I'm going to say it really won't make much of a difference, because it sounds to me, based on the intelligence that Zelensky's sharing with the public, Russia is already planning on hitting the top decision-making centers inside of Kyiv. So that's probably why we're seeing them ramp this up. Ukraine's probably thinking they're going to try to get ahead of those attacks by attacking Moscow first. It sounds like the Russians already have their minds made up on this, and it's probably not going to make a difference. So I'm actually with the 6%. I'm with the minority right there. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that hitting Moscow so far hasn't proved any strategic gain of significance so far. There are some significant factories within the area that produce some semiconductors for the Russian Federation, although I do have to say, folks, they're like the quality of semiconductors from like the 1990s. Like, they're not the most advanced at all, and it's basically a trickle that's internally produced in Russia. There's hardly any. But there are some factories like that around Moscow, usually in places like Leningrad, actually, that would be necessary to be hit to see that some of Russia's manufacturing capabilities and sub-manufacturing capabilities could be knocked out, to even further decrease their near non-existent war industry output to net zero, which would be something beneficial to see. But at large, we're not really seeing that these attacks, at least for the amount of drones that are being launched at Moscow, are producing the kind of damage that could be seen if these drones were directed elsewhere throughout the Russian Federation. Right now, we're seeing that about 120 drones at a time or more are launched at Moscow, and out of about all of those 120 drones, we usually only confirm about 20 impacts or less. Now, if you compare that to other drone forces or other drone attacks in other parts of Russia, the Ukrainians can throw 5 drones at Perm, and all 5 of them are going to hit Perm. Maybe one of them will get shot down, but that would be a very lucky outcome for the Russians if even a single one of the drones got shot down. So I generally actually have to say that the Ukrainians would probably be more apt to prioritize their attacks elsewhere, because striking at the head of the snake in this particular instance isn't necessary to be able to achieve victory in the conflict, and it's also wasting a significant amount of drones, which could cause irreparable damage to Russia elsewhere, where they're a lot more vulnerable and easy to hit. You always want to go...
But remember, though, there's a two-pronged thing here, because we have seen generally that Ukraine has kept up their campaign of hitting the oil infrastructure inside of Russia, and that has generally worked to a large degree. Russia has been extremely damaged because of all these oil strikes. But also remember, there is a growing unrest inside of Moscow. The people are not happy. It sounds to me like people are getting more and more unhappy with Putin, and they're getting brave enough to start publicizing that and making that known across social media, or whatever Russia has left. They're still making that known. They're not happy with Vladimir Putin. So I think what Ukraine might be doing with this is they're trying to put the pressure on Moscow, which is where most of the, I guess you could call them elite, live inside of Russia, to basically cause more unrest, because the more the people in Moscow feel unsafe, the more they're going to point fingers at Putin and say, why is this war going on for like 4+ years? Why have you not ended this yet? And it's going to put more pressure to cause unrest. So I think that's what Ukraine's trying to go for right now at this point. They're trying to add fuel to that fire.
That definitely could be possible, and they might be trying to add fuel to that fire, but I'm not really sure how beneficial that could be. We don't really know how dedicated, at least at the moment, the internal Russian government is to Putin, and if, say, the citizenry try and rise up, really at that point, the determining factor as to whether there would be a successful overthrow of the government in Russia would be if the army is loyal to the public or if they're loyal to Putin. And of course, folks, I do have to say that in multiple different historical examples, we have seen that the Russian army has very questionable rate of loyalty between the public and also the government. Usually whenever they pick the public, they usually overthrow the current existing government. For example, the Soviet Union in 1991, also the Tsarist Empire in 1917 at the beginning of the Bolshevik Revolution. And also there was a whole bunch of other examples as well historically in Russia, but just using those two, because those are the largest and most contemporary examples, it really would be important for the army's loyalty to be questionable. And we don't really know how far the army has gone, at least within the Moscow military district, to be able to start working on attempting a coup if the public started to rise up. There is a decent chance that it could end up like Iran, where tens of thousands of people started going into the streets, which would be the decision moment for the army, and then the army might pick loyalty with Putin and massacre people in the thousands, and basically nothing gets anywhere outside the massacre and a couple of thousand people laying dead in the streets. So I don't really know if that would be a huge determining factor. And on top of that, the other thing is that we've seen the Russian people get beaten down, just literally whipped basically over the past 4 years by the Russian government, and they don't really seem to rise up at all. I mean, the Russians have been almost historically trained for the last century to just take it sitting down from the Russian government. Whatever they do, there's really no room to complain. You better just be lucky they don't shoot you. And so I don't really think there's even a lot of an atmosphere at this point in Russia, at least from the public, even still, for them to actually try and rise up, at least for the moment. So I feel like the chances of putting that kind of pressure on Russia to force the war to an end is a little bit unrealistic, at least in my opinion, even right now, 4 years in.
We'll have to see. I think there might be something to it. I think it's what Ukraine's trying to go for, but we'll have to see, though. But remember that so far, Moscow's largely been insulated from any of the consequences of Putin's actions. They've largely been insulated to a large degree. So this is sort of removing that insulation piece by bringing these drone attacks closer and closer to those elites who are basically living in a bubble inside of Russia, because Moscow is the one area in the country that is generally considered livable or nice. It's generally just Moscow for the most part. So now they're bringing it to them. We'll have to see if that changes anything.
We'll definitely have to see. But moving us on out of that, we've also been able to see the closest drone that we've been able to confirm that got to the Kremlin. This one appears to have gone down in a lake somewhere around the Moskva River, and the only two lakes that we could find that match the description are these two right here. These are actually artificial lakes that were dredged by the Russians in the 1930s and the 1950s for a myriad of reasons. But we did get to see a clip here showing one Ukrainian drone that apparently crashed into a pond within this area, and this was only about 8 to 9 miles away from the Kremlin at the site of the crash. So here's this clip right here. We see the drone going down here in a second, and we'll take its swan dive right about there. It's going down towards the pond, and it's going to hit it right where my mouse cursor is at.
Oh, bomb.
That thing went off like a
dang.
depth charge.
Yeah, really. I guess electronic warfare got a hold of it, I would assume, because I would imagine they probably weren't targeting a pond.
Yeah, we didn't hear any active fire, so it does appear that electronic warfare did successfully take this one down. But the explosive on that thing was humongous. And also to show you all this area around the town that we were just showing a second ago, around Mia Canino, there are forested areas surrounding this little suburb on most ends. And so if this was filmed from a high-rise and it went down into a pond, it actually would be surrounded enough by forests that it would match the kind of scenery that we're seeing in this video, which is why we're believing, at least for now, that this drone did go down around Mia Canino in either this lake here, which is 9 miles from the Kremlin, or this one over here, which is 8 miles from the Kremlin. Moving us on out of that clip, we've also been able to get additional footage as well, showing the drones making their way to Moscow in a endless amount of videos. We have 4 of them right here, and we'll be showing each of them to y'all. Here's one showing another Ukrainian drone getting shot down.
It's wild the amount of clips we've gotten out of this attack so far. I mean, this is probably one of the most comprehensive attacks we've seen in this area in a while.
This is one of the most viral attacks that we've seen so far. Like, everybody in Moscow is filming this one. We also have this clip here from the movie Stalker. And And when you see the drone flying on through, I'm not going to lie, folks, if I woke up in a place that looked like this in the morning, I would be scared that the damn Texas Chainsaw Massacre man was walking down the street every morning coming to my place. Like, look at that. That is just eerie as hell. And in the midst of this eerie-looking landscape, you just hear a Ukrainian drone with a bomb strapped to it flying into Moscow. That's got to be something else right there, you know? But we also got this clip as well, showing us more of the incoming attack.
А можно, пожалуйста, мне член из жопы вытащить?
Ебать!
Вот я говорю, вот прям там взорвался, блядь, завали ебало свое. Ебать! Дебилы, блядь, честное слово. Да хватит, вытащить.
Oh, bro, they're sauced.
Oh my God, bro! He's got the whole damn wine bottle in his hand. Oh my God! This is we can now confirm this is definitely a video from Russia. This dude, what is that? Wine, beer, vodka? I can't tell what the hell that is. It's alcohol. Clearly, it's a huge bottle of it.
I don't know what this is, but but it ain't Russia if you ain't binge drinking at 4 in the morning. Like it's Russia for sure. We like, you know, folks, you can always tell when you're watching a clip from Syria or Mali, because they always go Allahu Akbar. In Russia, you can always tell if it's a clip if they from Russia if they have a bottle in their hand and they sound absolutely sauced at every hour of the day. You know, I feel like, folks, in Russia, if you were driving not under the influence, I feel like that's probably the crime. I feel like in Russia you're required to be drunk while you're driving because there's no way you couldn't be because it's Russia. But moving us on to the rest of the clip.
That's why they're laughing. That might explain why we always say, why are the Russians laughing at their own destruction? Well, it's probably because they're drunk.
Probably. Oh, yeah, man, honestly, now it's all coming together. It's like a little puzzle that we're finally getting the answers to. They're just blasted every hour of the day. That's why they're laughing at everything. Man, you know, that's how the Russian government keeps them down, man. They're like, oh, we're drunk. Oh, glug, glug, glug. Then they get another little sipping. Man, I tell you, Russia is a trip. Oh, here comes another. Oh, right over your head, too. But those are some of the montage of clips that we had of the ongoing drone attack. We also got to see some more of the explosions within the area, which we saw in this clip. Here it comes. It's going to be a drone getting shot down. Oh, actually, that was an impact. I'm pretty sure I saw a clip just like this.
Oh. Oh, man. This dude wasn't even making, like, a legible sounds. It was just... It was just like random sounds.
Bruh, in Russia, man, like this guy, man, he has sleep apnea, see? So in Russia, they have this thing like a CPAP machine, but instead of it feeding you oxygen while you sleep, it just keeps a little trickle of vodka pouring into your mouth so that way you wake up sauced, absolutely blitzed in the morning. And so this guy got up, man, and he saw that explosion. He had to start winding up that yabot, man. He went, yeah, man, like you're trying to get into it, but let's listen to it.
Oh man, I tell you what, those Russians, I tell you what, I honestly though, if I lived in Russia and I was miserable like that, I'd probably be saucing it out too if I was Russian.
Man, I mean, you know, man, I think if you go to Russia, you have to be drunk because if you're not drunk, they can't understand you. I think the whole Russian language is designed to be spoken intoxicated, you know? But outside of that, we also got to see some drones near Podolsk flying on in deep as well right here. Thing sounds like a World War II bomber coming in.
It really does.
man, they're going back to 1942 up in this bee. We also got to see this clip as well, also from the Podolsk area. Oh, that's the jet-powered one, actually. This guy is blasted, like you can already tell. He sounds like a dog, like, you know, this like kind of like scared, but it's also wanting to bark. Well, let's listen to that again. You can actually hear the sound of the jet engine.
Yeah, it's definitely not conventional. Also, for all the people saying it, I saw some people saying, "Well, what is a jet drone?" It's basically just a normal drone that's been made more aerodynamic, and they put like a little mini turbo jet on the thing. It's like a hobbyist jet, like it's that size of a jet, and they put them on like a little smaller drone, and they send them out. It's basically just a jet on the back of a normal drone, basically. They have a couple different variants of them. They have the Peclo, which is probably what that one is that we're looking at right here, and there's a couple of other ones. I can't remember their names right off the bat, but they're all generally kind of the same model, but they're a lot faster. That's the catch, and it's harder for them to intercept.
I'll have to show you all an example of one of these here in a moment, but getting us through the rest of this clip.
Also, people are saying jet turbine. It's very small. Like it's like something you'd find like maybe like a higher end hobby shop or something. It's literally just a small turbofan.
It is actually quite literally a hobby shop jet engine that they put on these things. I forgot the brand, but this is generally what some of the models look like, and it's just a more streamlined version of a Shahed, basically, with a vertical stabilizer to also help with stability at higher speeds. But I do have to say, they have a million different variants of this thing, and a million different drone-based variants as well, so this is not representative of every single design, because they also have this one here, which I don't know the name of that one, to be entirely honest with you all. I actually would have to tell you, I don't really know a lot of the names of the jet-powered ones by name, because their deployment and use is a lot more rare, so we just don't really get familiarized with them enough to have to memorize their names. But you can actually see that little hobby drone engine right there. I think it's like, what are these things called? Like a Horizon something, I believe, or a JetCat?
Yeah, I think it's like a Jet Cat sounds familiar. I can't remember the exact name of the thing, but it's basically like just a miniature hobby drone. It's not a pulse jet though. I saw some people saying that maybe it was a pulse jet. It's not that. This is an actual like little mini turbo jet, and it uses I think just like whatever like what is that fuel like nitro or something? I think it uses nitro.
Yeah, it's something along those lines, but it's definitely not a pulse jet, folks, because a pulse jet has a very distinctive sort of a bubbling noise while it's flying, if that's the best way to describe it. You can tell a pulse jet from a million miles away just from the sound of it. And these things sound like turbojets or turbofans, so definitely not a pulse jet whatsoever. And also that'd be hard to design on, because to show you all how a pulse jet is designed, this is the general kind of a concept of a pulse jet right here. And, you know, that'd be kind of hard to really fit into anything effectively. The little hobby-based turbojet engines are a lot more efficient. They're smaller, they have greater thrust, and also generally are much easier to find. Pulse jets aren't made industrially in huge numbers to also be easily accessible for production purposes, meaning that there would be a production bottleneck at that point trying to source or produce these pulse jets. While they're easy to produce, you'd still have to find people to make them, and that would be an issue. And so for that reason, they use turbojets, much like the ones that we were just seeing. And also, if I could ever find you an audio clip that wasn't on a copyrighted YouTube video of one of these things running, it does not sound at all like a turbojet. It goes some along the lines of something like that. Like, that's the best way I can describe it, and totally different sound. So that's why we know it definitely is not a pulse jet. So moving us on out of Moscow, after I just literally did that that's the thing to describe the sound of a pulse jet, we also were able to see the the smoke rising from the Ryazan refinery after the hit that was landed on it yesterday. We were able to see that right here. So we can see that the fire has largely subsided in Ryazan, but this is not the first rodeo for the Ryazan refinery. The Ryazan refinery has been hit over 30 times in the course of the war, and so I think they're pretty used to having this thing knocked out of operation at this point. We also got to see a clip from yesterday, though, showing us the fire when it was at its zenith and had not extinguished itself yet. Oh, bleed.
I'm surprised they got that out that quickly. I mean, this was a wildly large fire, and also it looks like most of the oil rain clouds have dissipated to a large degree.
From what we know, it just ran out of fuel for the larger part. Whatever they hit, there wasn't a lot of oil in it for the fire to feed on, and that's generally why it was extinguished quickly this time, is just because it really had nothing to do with the Russian firefighters. It just had to do with the lack of available fuel for the fire to eat on. So the Russians got really lucky with that one. But moving us on down and into the other major drone attack, before we start going through the rest of them that happened in the far hinterlands near the Urals, we did get to hear of some major attacks that happened in Sevastopol. And our first murmurings of the attacks that were happening was this post right here, which is from the Crimean radar. And they stated, A powerful explosion at the Kacha airfield, subscribers report. That was all we had. And then 5 minutes later, we started to see, apparently, what the large explosion it truly was. Let's take a look. Damn!
Good.
Oh my god!
Damn. Bro, it looks like a mushroom cloud coming off that thing. What was this again?
Ammunition, we're guessing. But it was one
Damn.
hell of an explosion, I'll tell you.
That was violent. Like, that wasn't like, one of those like extended explosions where it's like there's like one little small one, then there's like some secondary. That was like one big bam, like off of that. That was wild.
Man, let's listen to it again. Oh my god!
Jeez.
Here's a second clip of it from another angle.
That is crazy.
I don't even know.
That is bonkers, man. That's one of the largest ones I've seen in probably over a year.
Man, wait until we get to Israel. Like, man, wait until we get to Israel later on. Because, we also have that one that's even larger down there, just like west of Jerusalem. But moving us on from those two clips of the Kacha airfield, the drones, after laying their desolation onto the Kacha airfield nearby to Sevastopol, they then started to make their way on down and into Sevastopol harbor itself. And this is when we started to see that the Russian air defenses in the area had to start making their pay. And boy, none of them were wanting to get missed on the next pay stub.
Oh my god. Bro, it's chaos in Crimea.
Man, it is ungodly in Crimea. Oh my god. This is insane. Oh!
There was something going. I don't know what that was. And they're literally intersecting the fire over like the other firing positions. Like some of that stuff's going toward the air defense people.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. Like, I don't think they have a clue what they were doing in the air defense down there, but it didn't matter. They never do. And we did also get to see a little bit more of it from these angles as well. There's some village 5 miles from Crimea that's getting just like laid low by this machine gun fire. The bullets finally coming on down. Like, there's some village out there, man, that's having a terrible night.
That's awful. I wonder if they went berserk like this before or after that monumental Krakatoa explosion that we just saw.
I think that's probably what woke them up. Like, they were all sleeping on the technicals, and then they heard, "Oh shit!" And they said, get up, it's happening again!" Like, and then they all started shooting. That's probably what happened, honestly. Because remember the last time, man, like, that this happened, they, like, literally, it was, like, I think the first explosion that woke them all up and got them in a panic to start shooting, and then they started shooting. But also we saw that apparently some shrapnel from some Russian air defenses in Crimea actually ended up going through the windshield of the car here and getting stuck halfway through. And this was right in front of the driver's side of the car, by the way. And apparently the person was in the car when this happened, at least how the story is being told at the moment right now. They sound nervous.
Yeah, he sounds a little shaky. He was looking at one bullet hole right there. It's like that might have not hit the engine. It might just hit a coolant pipe or something, because it doesn't look like it went into like the main part where the cylinders would be at. So this dude might be okay with a small like rubber hose repair.
Oh no, my boy. Oh no. This isn't a bullet. That's metal in the windshield. That's a piece of shrapnel right there. That's no bullet. Like
it still might have cut a rubber hose. At least it didn't hit the main cylinders, like the obviously the engine block or anything like that. So he might still be okay, but still though, that's pretty bad. Did it bust the windshield out?
No. That thing, this gray thing you're seeing right here, that's a piece of metal. Like, it didn't go in the engine or anything. It went flying towards the windshield, hit it, and just cut right through without fracturing and got stuck halfway through. That's a big piece of metal.
I think
right
you're looking
there.
at the hood. I think you're looking at the hood right there. I don't think that's the windshield.
Bleed! The man!
See, I was right. You thought it was glass. It's just a very well-kept beater. I don't know what car this is.
I'm not gonna lie, man. I saw this caption on Reddit somewhere that it was the windshield. And I just assumed that it was because the only thing that I saw of it was that. And I was like, damn, that's crazy. They're looking up into the night sky. It looks like there's some stars. That's like some dead bugs.
Man, let me know what kind of glass can take a piece of metal in it like that. Like, I mean, if it can do that, that's some like Gorilla Glass at that point or something. I've never seen a windshield take a hit like that and not shatter.
There's some. I've seen it once, like before on another picture. And that's what kind of led me to believe. I was like, oh, that's nuts. I was like, that's unbelievable. But apparently I was mistaken, everyone. That's actually metal right there, and that's the hood of a car. And I just never realized that there was a headlight and a grill there at any other part of the clip, because when I saw the thumbnail of it, I only saw that, so I thought that was the windshield.
But see, though, my analysis stands though. This Ruski Bliat, he'll be okay with a small rubber hose repair, maybe, if this thing pierced anything at all. So all he walked away from was a little bit of nerves from this whole thing right here, and that's all for this Ruski.
Man, honestly, but he sounds nervous, that's for sure. But moving us on out of that story right there, which I just got horrendously wrong, we also were able to see the massive attacks in Sevastopol from another angle. Let's take a look. Oh, we can see an explosion off to the right.
This man's getting a text from his loved one saying, "There's an attack on the city. Do you see it?"
Oh. Man, that guy said it like he was inquisitive. He went, yeah, bye.
They got turned on by the explosions. He's got a thing for attacks.
Oh yeah, daddy, blow me up at it. Man, it's like, yeah, bro. Well, I mean, look, man, I didn't do that. He did that. He went, yeah, bye. Man, ooh la la. But anyways.
Нихуя себе. Так если что, я сейчас это удалю.
I heard that the Ukrainians are going to blow up Crimea tomorrow. Tell me how they're going to blow up Crimea tomorrow.
Wow, a very erratic voice you have right there, cameraman. Like a man, like. And then that guy.
Just wait until Olga comes out the back room. Set up the demon. Go sit down.
Man, gotta tell you, man. Baba Yaga be up in there. But moving us on out of that clip, those are all the clips that we got from the attacks in Sevastopol, but the attacks were quite large, as we could all see, and it does appear that the Russians are having a very bad day as far as their air defenses in the entirety of the country. And this is just the icing on the cake. We still have more to go. We have clips that came from everywhere else in Russia that we haven't gotten to yet of other significant attacks over the course of this day. But a lot of people are talking about these massive explosions and the fact that Ukraine has been diverting a lot of its drone attacks and efforts towards the Crimean Peninsula and the areas surrounding it, including Melitopol, and are beginning to wonder if the Ukrainians have some larger plans or ambitions coming this year or maybe next year that would require them to conduct these sorts of significant attacks on the Crimean Peninsula and the Russian forces that are a part of this army group. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that right now, and what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so I bet y'all like this. This is a true return to form. I must admit, it feels good to return to form tonight. We're right back to seeing Russia pay the price for invading Ukraine. And I must admit, it's a welcome change from the Iran war news. But getting to the poll, though, we did see those massive explosions. And obviously, that's no understatement. Those were massive explosions in Crimea. Well, some of the largest ones we've seen in over the last year or so. Also, gunfire got reported as well in Russian-occupied Crimea. So why is Ukraine suddenly focusing on Crimea? This is one of the biggest attacks we've seen in some time. 49% said Ukraine plans to retake Crimea soon. That's what's going on. 28% said Ukraine's just hitting strategic spots. And 17% said Ukraine is putting pressure on the Russian public. And sadly, folks, I don't think Ukraine's going to be retaking Crimea anytime soon. I think Zelensky and the gang kind of already alluded to that a little bit. They want Crimea back, but it's not a main priority. Right now they're fighting on the front lines. They are pushing the Russians back on the front lines, thankfully. So Crimea might be a bit of a stretch right now. They might get to it later, but not right now. I would generally say that what we saw tonight was they were generally hitting strategic spots, and occasionally they hit like maybe a couple of random targets here and there, but I think that was an ammo depot that we saw explode, that biggest explosion that we saw, and also they were obviously hitting other areas on the coastline as well that housed a whole bunch of military equipment. So that's what I'm going to say. I'm with the 28%. I think it's purely strategic strikes that we're seeing right here, and they're simply ramping them up because I guess now's better time than ever, I guess you could say. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that they were most likely just hitting strategic targets. Currently, the Ukrainian armed forces would have to retake the entirety of the Zaporizhia and Kherson Oblast to eventually make an attempted attack and capture of Crimea possible, which at the moment, that just does not seem to be a likelihood. Most of the front lines are in a state of stalemate and have been for quite some time, years at this point, and while the Ukrainians are able to effectively counterattack and regain ground, it's not in any thousands of kilometers or hundreds of kilometers that would be necessary per week to even make Crimea a reasonable strategic objective over the course of this year or next year. So generally, I'd have to say that while the Ukrainians are doing well on the front line at the moment, and that they definitely are seeing some progress against the Russian army, that does not necessarily mean that Crimea is in the cards at any point in the future. So I'd say that they're largely attempting to hit strategic targets and deprive the Russian armed forces at large currently involved in the theater of munitions, support, communications hubs, and other strategic infrastructure and facilities that are based in the rear line areas that help to support their combat operations on the front. Generally to put them at a further disadvantage, but not with the aim of retaking the entirety of the Crimean Peninsula, at least for now. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion, because I would also have to be within the 29% that they're most likely just hitting strategic locations within the area. Speaking of strategic locations...
Wait, breaking news. The Sheremetyevo airport has taken a direct hit inside of Moscow. I'm reposting that right now. Pull that up real quick. Where is that? That's pretty close to downtown, I think,
No.
that airport.
This is the largest international airport in Moscow.
Okay, so that's a very serious hit. So we had heard before the stream went live that they were currently grounding the flights at these airports, but there's the hit. You're seeing it right there in the picture. There's a direct hit. It looks like it might be on the runway possibly at Sheremetyevo Airport. So that's a big hit right there. Actually, that's the first time I've seen Sheremetyevo get hit. I think I can't remember actually when the last time it got hit, if ever.
It's never been hit, actually. This would be the first time that we've ever reported on air that it's been hit. And that is crazy. It looks like it might be this airstrip up here, which would be runway 6 left. It looks like it's somewhere around here, because if you look around, there isn't really a lot of supporting infrastructure south, and there are some forests down here. And it looks like that's most likely where the picture is taken, because the other two runways just aren't in an area like that to be photographed. So this looks to be the third runway at Sheremetyevo Airport that has been hit by a drone, and this picture was taken right after impact, because we can see that the smoke from the explosion has just started rising right after the hit. Also, on top of that, we see this dirt road here that's... Is this it? Hold up. Let me see if I can get a... I think that might be the road. No, this one's below elevation of the runway. Let me see if I can find the exact location that this was photographed at, because it shouldn't be too hard.
Wait a second. We've got a Russian in the chat, and they say they live in Sheremetyevo. Now, if this is accurate, it appears to be possibly a Russian account right here, actually. They're saying, I live in Sheremetyevo, and that was 8 drones that came in. So, I mean, clearly there had to be a few. Like, they're saying it was 8, according to the person in the chat there. So, I love to see. I haven't gotten any video out of Sheremetyevo, like showing the drone coming in. We haven't gotten that yet. If any Ruskies out there, want to upload some video like that on Telegram, of course, we would love to show that to the people, these current attacks right now. But, this is a pretty big hit right here. I'm surprised it got there to that airport, because I would imagine they protect it quite heavily.
Yeah, I'd have to say so. I mean, that's really crazy, honestly, to see something like this happen. I'm assuming, folks, that this is on the third runway, because I can't find the exact location where this photograph was taken, but there is some sort of a dirt or gravel road here near to the airfield itself. There's a fence right there, and then we can see the mowed and maintained area around the runways and the tarmac is just right outside of this gated and fenced area. So I would assume it's somewhere up here. This looks to be lining up with that, but we'll have to eventually see if we can get further corroboration and exact geolocation of that here in the near future. But it does appear that we can confirm that Sheremetyevo Airport has been hit, and if that is the runway, that explosion and impact was 18 miles from Moscow. So these are getting well on into the air defense perimeter. This is DC's the halfway point between the S-300s and the Pantsirs. So this is getting on in there, actually.
Yeah, I would say so. Pretty big hit.
Pretty big one. And we'll have to see if we get any other information on that as time continues to pass. But moving us on out of that news and on into the area of Kazan, we did get to see that out in Kazan, things are getting kind of crazy. Acting crazy and silly. They don't even care no more. Generally, just the alerts of the incoming air raids is all that that's showing. We also were able to see that in Naberezhny Chelny, there was a major fire at an industrial plant today, which is believed to have been caused by partisan activity, because we haven't seen any drone alerts within this area, but there was a major fire that happened at a critical Russian factory in the region of Naberezhny Chelny, so it is believed right now that this may be the work of partisans. And that is also quite a large fire as well. Here's another clip of it. Gotta tell you, that's something else right there. Look at that. And look at that. Really something. We also were able to see that way out in Perm, it also appears that they're having their own problems once again, as another large fire has broken out in the city. Oh, probably yet.
It's just random fires everywhere. Oh, you look, a train yard's on fire. That's a damn shame.
Actually, this is near a train yard. Like, this isn't the train yard. This is near to it. But I also got to say, folks, if this was America, the police would have been out here in an instant arresting everybody for being on these strikes. I also got to say, isn't this kind of unsafe to leave children unattended on active railways like this? You know?
It's Russia. They boxcar, like, hitchhike all the time in Russia. Like, that's still a thing there. Like, they'll jump in the boxcars, like, back in the, the 50s and 60s, where, like, Boxcar Jack was taking the train to a new city or something.
Man, I'll be honest with you, man. I wouldn't ride no boxcar. They don't even got chairs in those things, Like, it's really tough in there. Spartan, honestly.
She somehow didn't react to the bang right there. She acts like she's confused about why she didn't have a reaction to it.
Russians are like moths to a flame whenever a large fire happens. They all have to get as close as they can. Oh, look at that, Damn. Oh, look, it's some Russian fire brigade of the town of Perm. Like, they finally made it. They'll be joining in the festivities. Also, we have more breaking news coming out. Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so it is confirmed, definitely. Sheremetyevo Airport's having some serious problems. They might have suffered a second hit, possibly, but I can't confirm that right now. But I am currently looking at the status of the airport. It is the second most disrupted airport in the world right now. They're canceling flights left and right here. They're not letting any aircraft land at this airport, and they've generally, from what I can tell, pretty much cleared out the airspace. Well, let's take a look and make sure that's the case.
They have.
Yeah, they have. So they've cleared out the airspace completely right now. So there is an active situation beyond apparently what we just seen in that video of that one drone hit at that airport. It could be worse than we currently know about from the looks of it. So waiting to see what's happening here. I'm waiting on some more footage to come out because this is pretty unprecedented to see this big of an airport right outside of Moscow taking such a direct attack like that. That's remarkable.
Well, Matthew, I think you're exaggerating. The average delay is only 40 minutes right now. They got a couple of guys, Vadim and Vitaly, out there on the tarmac right now with some brooms, and they're just sweeping the drone off. They'll be operational in no time.
I don't think so. I think that's just a preliminary report right there. I have a feeling that they're going to be probably waiting in the airport probably all day at this rate right here. But if that's the second most disrupted, I don't know what the first most disrupted is. I'll have to find out.
What would you got to go find that out now. What would the first...
it's guess what? It's the Vnukovo Moscow airport. That's number one. That's there you go right there.
Yeah.
So all the airports in Moscow are the worst congested in the world right now because of this attack. I haven't seen any attacks on Vnukovo yet. I haven't seen that. I've just seen Sheremetyevo get hit, but maybe there's possibly something happening at this other Moscow airport as well. I'm not really sure though. But I mean, this is a serious attack.
Well, the Vyknovo airport, if I can pronounce that, that is so hard to pronounce. That one's actually in the area where drones are literally flying overhead at the moment right now. So that's why it's seeing such disruptions for such a long amount of time. But I generally wouldn't believe that this is a deliberate attack. And also, I got to say, folks, that the inside of this airport looks like shit. I mean, look at this. This looks like an industrial warehouse that's been refitted into an airport. That is rough, man. They got the castle hotels, bruh. The gimmick, le gimmick. I'm not gonna lie, folks. This airport's kind of not really good looking. It's kind of like this is like Dallas Fort Worth if it was F tier. Like that's what this looks like to me.
Yeah, pretty much so. But I'll be fascinated to see what comes out of this right here because right now, of course, the attack is still ongoing on Moscow as a whole. It still hasn't ended even right now. So we'll have to wait and see.
We'll definitely have to wait and see. I would say, folks, that I don't think this is a deliberate attack by the Ukrainians. This might be electronic warfare interference that is bringing the drones down where they're at, because we have seen that that's been a pretty big effect on the attack so far, and it might just be happening over the area of the airport. Generally, Ukraine does not attack civilian infrastructure or anything that would be used primarily for civilian use, and this airport is a civilian airport, and as I understand it, there is quite literally no Russian Air Force aircraft that are usually based or operated out of this airfield. So if they were to hit anything deliberately, there are some airfields over here further to the east that the Russian Air Force and the Russian Army uses as helipads and operational airfields, but I would doubt that this is a deliberate attack, but it certainly is something that's pretty crazy to hear nonetheless.
Oh, I got something else, by the way. The Russian air defense is starting to malfunction. It's gotten overwhelmed and it's malfunctioning. We have a video that just came out showing in Moscow, in some suburb of Moscow, it looks like one of the air defense interceptors took a hard right turn and might have gone right back into a residential complex from the looks of it. So it's definitely getting overwhelmed, but let's take a look. Oh, there. Look at it. There, it's like boomeranging. Oh, shit.
Man, in the words of Karl Marx, call this thing NASCAR because we turned this B left.
Honestly, really, like that. There goes those infamous malfunctions that they always have. Like like I told you earlier, I was kind of like halfway joking and halfway not when I said the Russian air defense has an appetite for the civilians. It's like this is probably one of the worst hits right here is from their own missile going back at their own people.
Man, Russian air defense is really quite paradoxical because when it actually needs to shoot down an incoming Ukrainian drone, it's practically brain dead. But whenever it can sniff out an innocent civilian in the nearby area, it can whip a 40G turn mid-flight. Like, look at this. Look at that. That is like a 40G turn right there on that missile. It can whip a 40G turn and then go flying straight into the third floor of an apartment building and wipe out a family. I don't understand how Russian air defense is always like that. It's something else. I mean, look at the turn on that thing. That is like the maximum apogee that it can actually pull.
Yeah, I see people saying they really can't see it either. It's there. You can see the streak right there, a little bit of the smoke from it. You can see that little illuminated spot. That's actually the air defense missile going around. It's just very far out and kind of hard to see it.
Also, I'll keep my mouse cursor on it so that way you can kind of know where it is on screen. Because if you can't see it, I don't doubt you on that at all. I mean, this is very hard to see even for me. So I'll keep my mouse cursor on it and show y'all where the rocket went. So starting right now. And there it goes. Follow the mouse cursor, folks, on down here. And then it went over here where my mouse cursor is circling right now. So it appears to have gone straight into a lower floor of an apartment building. But
I would hate to be near a Russian air defense system. That's probably the most dangerous spot to be out of everywhere is next to your defenses.
the irony of that. But still showing us right now the attacks are still ongoing, and it also appears that it's still not going well for Russia, and things are only getting worse on their end and on the end of the actual attack coming in as well. But moving us on into Perm, we also got to see the clip as well of the fire inside the city once more, but largely a duplicate, just in case the first one didn't load. So moving us on out of the heartland of Russia here in the west, it's time for us to move on down and into the Russian Caucasus mountain region. As we were able to see in Pyatigorsk today, something that can only be seen, not described. Observe.
Ох ты, сейчас как въебет.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's a gas explosion, isn't it?
Yes, from a gas station actually, and they don't know what caused it.
Interesting. Hmm.
Well, we've seen these happen before. Remember, man, in that one time in Grozny in Chechnya, when one of these gas stations blew up and the gas tank literally went rocketing through the streets like a flying tank. You remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. It also, you can tell a gas explosion, like right off the bat. It always has that really slow, like growth to it, like it goes like a big whoosh. It's like that's always a gas explosion. Like, I could tell that just by sort of taking a glance at it.
Yeah, you can actually see the unexploded gas just flying through the air from the pressure of the rupture in the tank right here. There's all of the unexploded gas just rocketing into the sky. And then it catches on fire, of course, right here.
Ох ты, сейчас как въебет.
That is insane. I mean, that is absolutely crazy
Yikes.
looking.
That is bad right there.
Это пиздец.
I don't know what would cause something like that, because they have safeties on their gas tanks, just like we have here in America. So there's supposed to be a whole bunch of safeguards to prevent that from happening. So it's kind of weird. Like, you can't really say it's intentional. We don't have the evidence to say that. But at the same time, it's like, how does something like that happen out of the blue?
Weirdly enough, this happens a lot down in this region of Russia, and I have a feeling that it's probably nothing more than them not adhering to safety regulations. Because, Russia's corrupt. I mean, they might skip on installing certain safety systems to make sure that overpressures and explosions and fires don't happen where they're not supposed to. And, I mean, every time we've seen one of these, man, I mean, think about it. Vladikavkaz, Grozny, now Pyatigorsk. I think we even saw one in Nalchik a long time ago. They're all in this area. Like, they're all in the same spot. I think there's something going on with that, rather than, maybe it's the Ukrainians doing it, because it's all happening within one focalized area in Russia over the years. So it's got to be something with corrupt officials, or maybe some terrorist group doing it, like ISIS-K, but I don't really think it's the Ukrainians, myself, personally.
Yeah, I wonder. We'll have to find out.
Also, moving us on over to Kutspisk to wrap up our internal Russian news, we did get to confirm once again today that the Buyan is no longer. According to the information that came out today, Black Spark, which is a partisan group, destroyed a military ship guarding the Shadow oil fleet. Tonight, during an attack on the main naval base of the Caspian Flotilla of the Russian Federation, a small artillery ship of the Project 21630 Buyan was sunk, which was used to guard Russia's Shadow oil fleet. The participants of the Black Spark had been preparing this operation for a long time. As a result of its implementation, ammunition detonated on board, a fire broke out, and the ship sank. According to preliminary information, the crew did not survive, although we don't know how many of them were even on board because it was moored to port when it blew up. Illegal oil supplies through the Caspian Sea are costing Putin more and more. The cost of one Buyan is worth more than $100 million. Clearly, the profit from the sale of the cargo it was intended to guard will go into the minus. The naval base in the city of Kaspisk in Dagestan houses ships, boats, and supply units, as well as infrastructure for their maintenance and repair. This is not the first defeat of military ships in the Caspian Sea with their direct participation, and definitely not the last. Be with Black Spark. So looks like they've been working overtime down there in Kaspisk. And it's a very sad thing to hear the Buyan song. Tragedy, really. But moving us on out of the interior hinterlands of Russia and the heartland of Russia, it is now time for us to move on down and into the Middle East. But before we do that, folks, I do have to say a humongous thanks to everyone who's been watching the stream so far tonight. We still have a lot of news to go, and when I mean a lot of news, I mean a load of news that we still have to go. And I gotta say that we're entirely honored and greatly appreciative of so many of y'all enjoying the stream so far tonight, because we've had a peak viewership here at the moment right now of 16.1 thousand people. That's a lot of folks. And on top of that, 82,000 of y'all have watched the stream in the first hour and 17 minutes. That's a lot of people. And I gotta say that once again, we're extremely appreciative and massively enjoy all of y'all spending your time here to get the news from the Enforcer channel. Now, before we move on into the rest of everything that we do have one more poll to talk about to wrap everything up inside of Europe, or more so inside of Russia. Before we move on to the rest of the news that we have from around the world, and just to let y'all know, so that we all know y'all have something to wait for, we're going to be covering everything in the Middle East. We're going to be covering the strike on Duki, who is the right-hand man in ISIS. Also, the East Asian news. There's a little bit of news that came out about the upcoming motor oil shortage here in the United States. And then we also have a lot of frontline news that we haven't covered from Ukraine yet, and a little bit of additional news from the UK.
You got that like nuclear-sized explosion out of like central Israel too, don't you?
Do I have it? I've got all 5 POVs. Like, I literally have every angle.
Okay, good. Because the people have to see that one. That one, you have to see that to believe it. There was a massive explosion in Israel today. I'm sure you might have seen pictures of it. We've got multiple different angles of that explosion. It was probably the biggest one I've seen ever in Israel.
Probably one of the biggest outside the Beirut explosion in like 2019, I'd assume, like in the region. But outside of that, before we get on into all of the rest of this news, let's get to this poll really quickly. And right now, a lot of people are talking about the Ukrainians and their combat readiness on the Belarusian border. I hate to say this, folks. This poll is actually a little premature. I was going to cover that later on in the Ukraine war segment for the actual front, but we'll still get to it now. Because a lot of people have been hearing about the Ukrainians and their preparation on that front, and are people thinking that this would be enough to deter Putin? And what are y'all thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well, Matthew?
Okay, so we'll go ahead and address this one right now, as we got to clear this poll out, because we got to get to the ones about the Middle East soon. So we'll cover it a little bit more later, but just to go ahead and preempt this right here while we're on the topic, Ukraine has deployed a large number of forces on combat readiness to the Belarusian border, which, by the way, is going to probably provoke Belarus or Russia a little bit. But of course, Ukraine has to do it because there is intelligence out there suggesting that there might be a new Russian invasion, this time from Belarusian territory for the first time ever, into Ukraine through the northern part of the country. So will this deter Putin from attacking? 49% said no, Putin will still invade the country. 23% said yes, Putin will think twice about it. And 18% said Belarus will likely resist and it might put it on pause temporarily. And at this point, the fact that Ukraine has gone through all this effort to shore up the border in the north, I would say that Ukraine must have some very good intelligence that Russia is planning on doing this imminently. We're not sure when they're going to kick this off, but it sounds like Belarus is about to be dragged into the conflict, which is obviously a big red flag, by the way, because generally Belarus has resisted up until now, and it sounds like Lukashenko can't really resist Putin's wishes anymore. So I'm with the 49%. I think Putin will still go for it, but at least Ukraine is ready for when Putin actually pulls this off. But Enforcer, what say you?
Man, I gotta say, I think, to be entirely honest with every single one of y'all, I believe that I don't really know if this is actually going to be followed through on. We're just not seeing any force deployments right now in Belarus by the Russian army that we've been able to confirm by satellite photography or anything else to show that this is seriously being considered by the Russians. And while the Ukrainians are saying that it is becoming a significant threat, I think that might just be more so in the conceptual phase at the moment, to where they're hearing, possibly through their intelligence forces, that Belarus is supporting the idea of Russia eventually doing something like this, but I'm not really sure if that's going to be happening anytime soon, because once again, folks, we're generally lacking a lot of picture and video evidence of the forced dispositions that the Russians would have to have near the southern Belarusian border to be able to launch an offensive like this. So I would have to say, also, another thing I do have to add in as well, folks, is that the Belarusian army could also be deployed near the southern border of Belarus, but Belarus's armed forces are generally designed as a support force for the Russian army conducting operations on their own soil. They're not really designed for their own independent operations. So it's possible that Belarus could be the one building up their own forces, which would be a lot easier to pull off, but once again, offensively, they're handicapped by their design and force structure that's existed since 2005. So I would say that generally this might be enough deterrence, because if there's enough defensive locations and positions on the Ukrainian border, that is going to slow down any opening offensive and probably turn it into a grinding slog like the Sumy front or the Vovchansk front, which has remained as such for over the past 2 years and has never been turned into a major offensive front, even with as many lives, personnel, and equipment that the Russians have thrown towards those small and insignificant fronts. They're so small, most people don't even really know of them at this point. So I'd have to say that I actually be with a 23%. It probably will be an effective deterrent. It'll make Putin think twice, because it might just be easier for them to continue to go into the meat grinder down in the Donbass than to try and start a new offensive front, and then it gets absolutely nowhere because the Ukrainians are already fairly well dug in as it is right now. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. But Matthew, I have heard, man, that the real person in charge of Belarus has been talking to Putin. Putin went to Minsk the other day, and he said, "How are you doing, Lukashenko?" And Lukashenko said, "Oh, I'm doing very well." And then Putin said, "Okay, shut the hell up. I wasn't really talking to you, Fluffy." What are you thinking? "I say invade Ukraine from the north." "Really? You're very smart, Fluffy. Now I understand why Lukashenko loves you so much." "Yes, he's very..." "Shut up, Lukashenko." Man, it's like, honestly, man, the dog is running the country. It's not Lukashenko.
Man, it could be, possibly so. Also, by the way, I have gotten some more details about Sheremetyevo Airport. It looks like the drone hit runway 06 left. It looks like that is the runway that
Oh,
was hit at
money.
Sheremetyevo. So it looks like a main runway was hit. So now that that has happened, I'm not sure what kind of crater it left behind. It might have just maybe marred the runway possibly, because of course runways are pretty thick when it comes to the base layer on the actual tarmac itself. So it's unclear if it damaged it enough to put the runway out of action or not. But apparently it hit a main runway, so that's pretty serious.
Man, I called it earlier. I said it looks like runway 6. It was runway 6. Oh, Briaga. Like, I gotta say, I'm winning so much, folks. I'm getting tired of winning. I gotta say, the geolocation tonight, folks, has been pretty on point. And it's literally off the cuff. I gotta say, folks, it's something like I gotta say, folks, it's great when I do geolocation literally on the spot, like literally in like seconds in my head, and I'm somehow getting it right. Oh man, I'm telling you, I can't stop winning. But anyways, with that, moving us on out of that news that it was runway 6, it is time for us to get on into 3 questions before we move on into the rest of our news for the night. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right. So, also, by the way, y'all stick around. We got that news out of Israel coming up here in a second. We got a lot of news to cover tonight. Honestly, tonight's pretty jam-packed full of news. Was not expecting that on Saturday. But jumping into our first super chat, though, this one goes to Game Theory. And thank you very much, Game Theory, for that $50 support. And we do appreciate it very, very much. One of the largest super chats of the night. They said, since drones act like modern kamikazes without pilots, why not revive World War II tech like the Spitfire to shoot them down? Seems like cheap prop planes would be the perfect cost-effective counter to these long-range drones.
Game Theory, you're actually thinking pretty smart, and people have actually beaten you to that idea already. There's this group around Odessa in Ukraine that actually uses Yak-52s, which are these older aircraft. Let me show them to y'all. They're not purpose-built fighter aircraft. Here they are. This is what they look like. And so while they fly around in the, cartoon propeller plane, the guy in the back actually has a machine gun, and he uses that to be able to shoot down drones. And so in a sense, this is actually a living tactic in the modern day right now, is to use close to World War II era aircraft to be able to try and shoot down these incoming Shaheds. So to answer your question, they actually already do that. But the thing about getting older vintage aircraft like Spitfires and Mustangs is that unfortunately not a lot of them have survived in the modern day, so there's just not a good number of them around to be able to use. Honestly, I'm just going to be frank with everyone. If I was the person who was having to do that and we had to find a modern equivalent for that, I'd probably select the Beechcraft Bonanza as my aircraft of choice. There is no overhead wing like you find on a Cessna 172. Or you could use a Cessna Caravan. That would also work as well. Although that also has an overhead wing design instead of a lower body wing design like this. But this, you could pop open the side door, or you could just remove the doors from this Beechcraft Bonanza, take it up into the air, and then, poke the machine gun out the window and start shooting at the drones. As long as it's I would also have to say that there is a little bit of an issue with this, because this does have a hard-shelled roof, and the Yak-52 doesn't have that. All the Yak-52 has is a slidable or retractable canopy, and they just keep it open during flight, so that way they can get the best field of view as possible. So you probably will want to find something pretty similar to a Yak-52 that has a really good field of view like that, because even with the Beechcraft Bonanza being kind of close to that, if you remove the doors, it still has that hard roof, which would pose a bit of an obstacle for maneuverability, and also swiveling the machine gun from the left side of the plane to the right side of the plane, because you'd have to find a way to somehow shimmy or rig the barrel, shove it down basically in your crotch to try and flip it to the other side of the aircraft, which would be a little tough. But they do have this, and they're trying to bring it. They're trying to bring it around in a larger form in Ukraine. They're actually trying to get more of these. So I do thank you so much for the support and help this channel to keep on running. And I hope that does address your question incredibly well, Game Theory. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, once we get on to our question segment, we do have some more breaking news. The Moscow air defense has attacked civilians again. Literally just now, another air defense missile has just been fired right into the parking lot of an apartment building, and it's done some severe damage, to say the least. And in fact, we literally have an eyewitness that filmed it right on the ground, right next to where the missile came in, which was the air defense missile from Russia, by the way, trying to shoot down a Ukrainian drone. This one's wilder than the last one, but we'll get to our questions first, and we'll get to that in just a second. So our second super chat goes to none other than Chef Danny B. And thank you very much, Chef Danny, for that $50 support, and we do appreciate that very, very much. And Chef Danny said, good evening, Enforcers, and good evening, beautiful people of the LSA. Chef Danny here, and question is it even possible for Ukraine to take Crimea back? Just wondering, or is it too far gone? And LLT LSA, and I actually got off at 4 on a Saturday.
Hey, nice. That's good to hear. And you get a little bit more rest. You get some more rest, I tell you, Chef Danny B. And that's always a great thing. I got to say a big good evening to you, and big good evening to the LSA as well. I hope everyone in the LSA is doing well today. And I would have to say that for Ukraine to take back Crimea, they'd have to achieve a lot beforehand. Major offensive successes would have to be won in the area around Melitopol and Kherson to be able to really even attempt to take back Crimea. So I'd have to say that unfortunately for now, with how the front line is looking and how stagnant it is within this particular front, that's probably not going to be happening anytime soon. So I'd say for now, in the immediate future, this is well out of the question for the Ukrainians to counterattack and retake Crimea physically by armed force. They'll probably have to see that they somehow take it back through some diplomatic concessions or diplomatic cessations in the future to where it is peacefully handed back to the Ukrainians after the war if the Putin regime collapses, and then that concept is looked at by the new Russian government as a bad idea. So I do thank you incredibly for the support and help this channel to keep on running, Chef Danny B. And long live the Lee Spring Army, and we are absolutely pleased to hear that you got off of work at a reasonable time today and aren't working to the bone. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. And let's take a look, folks, at that footage really quickly before we get to the last question of the segment of the impact in Zelenigrad from the air defense failure. So let's take a look at these clips. You can hear the drone. Dang!
Oh, it's not over.
Oh my god!
Holy crap. Bro, that was crazy. There was 2 of them, actually. I only saw the one earlier when I glanced at the video. So there was an initial one he did not catch on camera, and then there was the second one that just like floated into the parking lot and blew up.
Bro, that second one, man, said, I'm coming in slow. Man, I'm coming in nice and easy. Man, it's like, God dang, man, I gotta tell you, that's crazy. Well, let's watch it. There was the first one.
Bro, why was it moving so slow? Like, it looks unnatural the way that thing moved in. It was like floating in like a UFO.
No, man. This is like one of those like glowing like lightning orb things right here. Look at it.
Oh my god. It was so unnatural looking, but it did some damage. It literally decimated the parking lot.
Oh, wait, we gotta watch this one more time, folks. This was one for the records, right? You just see the bright flash in the corner, and then he looks over, and there's this like 30-mile-an-hour slow ball just going to the parking lot, just real nice, like.
Oh my god. Bro, that is crazy. Look at it. It destroyed the parking lot.
Good lord.
Man, their air defense is awful. Like, god awful. Like, that air defense is dangerous.
Oh, here's some of the footage of where one of these missiles actually impacted. This doesn't look to be the same area as the last clip, so this appears to be 2 totally different instances of Russian air defense failures documented in Zelenigrad and reposted at the same time in 2 separate clips. And we see him pointing at it. I muted the audio, by the way. But, dang!
Oh my, it took out the whole bottom of the building.
Oh my lord.
Damn. Man, honestly, like, shoo, the Russian air defense, like, whoa.
Honestly, I feel like the Russians would suffer less damage if they just didn't shoot the drones.
Yeah, really. I mean, that's wild, folks. Like, we've literally seen the worst damage from the Russian air defense missiles. That's been the worst damage of the evening so far.
I'm not gonna lie, I haven't seen much of anything like this before. That's something else. But moving us on out of that breaking news out of Moscow, we also were able to hear that around the area of Vyrokyno, there's also been an oil fire that's now breaking out in Russia as well. We can also see the drone nets over the tanks. It didn't really work for them, though. And here's another clip of the fire. This is apparently the fire at Moscow, I'm assuming. Let's see if that's close to Zelenigrad. Let's see. Vyrokyno. Let me type it in, because I can't find Dirikino. So, Dirikino. Okay, so technically this city doesn't exist according to Google. So, the spelling...
They misspelled it. They misspelled it. It's a Ukrainian. They're typing it in English and they mistranslated it. It's like Durakino or something, but I don't know the exact spelling of it. If you type it in like close enough, it'll give you a suggestion, I think, to the right place. But we also got 2 more videos of it, by the way. It looks like that oil storage facility there near the Moscow region. It looks like the whole thing's on fire from the most recent video I just reposted.
Oh. Man, they had those things covered in mosquito nets. It didn't really do much.
Man, I think it's a bad morning. It's a bad morning for Moscow. Like this is pretty bad all the way around.
It's a bad day to be a Muscovite, folks. If you're a Muscovite, you might want to rescind that and become like a Tavarian or something like that in Russia. This isn't a good day to be in Moscow, but I gotta say, that's some hell of damage that the Ukrainians have already caused. Maybe these attacks in Moscow really are producing actual damage. Maybe they are worthwhile. We'll have to see. But anyways, with that, we are on to the last question of this segment, and then we're getting on into the rest of the news. So, Matthew, what do we got for our last question of this segment?
All right, so this one goes to Samuel Sizelmansky, and thank you very much, Samuel, for that $50 support, and we do appreciate that, of course, very, very much. Very generous of you, by the way. And Samuel said, I took a mini road trip today at the National Railroad Museum in Ashwaubenon in Wisconsin, and on the way back, I saw the crash site of Sputnik 1 in Manitowoc, and highly recommend if you are ever in the area.
The Sputnik 1 crashed in the United States? I never knew that. Did you know that, Matthew?
No, I hadn't heard that, personally.
Me either. I never heard of that, actually. That's pretty wild right there. And where was the other place that you looked at there? It was
Ashwaubenon, or Wisconsin.
Let's see. Oh, there it was. And there's a railroad museum here. We'll take a quick look at it. Of course we have to take a quick look at it. Like, there's no question we have to. There's no doubting. Acting crazy and silly. Well, where's the railway museum? National Railroad Museum? Is this? Oh, it's right here. Oh, this is actually, I think this actually has the Dwight D. Eisenhower, which is a British A4 class. And they also have a big boy as well. This is actually a famous railroad museum. They also have the Aero Train. Sadly, not really that good. It looked cool, but it wasn't that good, actually. But a really cool railroad museum. You had a cool little road trip today. And they even have an Alco Sentry out here, too. So some really cool stuff, honestly. You know, I've heard of this railroad museum a couple of times before. I've heard that it's one of the best in the country, actually. And I would like to take a visit to it one day. And I'm kind of jealous of you. You had a really good road trip today. But where is that Sputnik crash site? I'm actually interested in finding that one again. Sputnik, let's see, crash site. Let's see here. Crash site. Oh, look. Wow, it really did crash there.
Yeah, it is crazy. I didn't know that until today.
Yeah, me either. I thought that the whole thing, I thought it burned up so thoroughly in the atmosphere when it came down, because it didn't last that long, Sputnik 1. I thought that the whole thing was gone, but apparently some of it actually landed here in the States. Apparently it was Sputnik 4, actually. So they had a fourth one. Like, I gotta go pull that up. Sputnik 4, what did that look like? Man, that thing was a long shot off from Sputnik 1. This thing looked like Nomad from Star Trek. I am Nomad. I am perfect. Like, it looks more like that than anything. But anyways, a big thanks to you for that incredible support and helping this channel to keep it running. And I gotta say, what a cool road trip. I hope you had fun with that, because I know I certainly would have. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running once again. And with that, folks, it is time for us to move on out of the question segment and on into the rest of the news that we have from around the world. So, strap in, folks. We're going to everywhere but Russia now. Moving us on into Turkey, we did get to hear that apparently some sort of a drone crashed in Turkey today. Had a very interesting tail boom design to it. And according to the reports out of Tasnim news agency, which is Iranian, an unidentified unmanned aerial vehicle reportedly crashed in Turkey's Samsun province, not to be associated with Samsung Technologies, near the Black Sea, damaging 3 homes and causing panic in a residential area, according to local reports. Authorities have launched an investigation into the incident, and no injuries were reported so far. We then were able to hear further on down in Tartus, Syria, that there were some explosions coming from the area. Somebody playing accordion.
I thought it was somebody's phone or something going off.
Could have been. Oh, but there's some explosions coming from Tartus. Meanwhile, down in Israel, nothing happened at all. And I mean nothing. Do not mind the giant glowing orb in the horizon coming from an ammunition depot. That was nothing, according to the Israelis. Just a little test. It went exactly as planned. And they notified everybody in the area, but then everybody in the area said that they had never been notified about this happening or that it was going to happen. But here's the first clip that we had of this explosion. To give you all a little bit of context, though, before we start watching this, just so that we all know what this is. This happened near to an area called Bet Shemesh, and specifically the area around the Sadat Micah ammunition depot, which you can see right here. This area has been blurred out a little bit, but it's mostly a form of an ammunition dump from what we can tell, and sometimes we've heard that it sporadically is a munitions testing depot, but we have never seen any real proof of that before, at least here on this channel, and I haven't been able to do enough research on that to be able to confirm that. We did get to see that from that facility, though, this giant explosion. Oh, English.
Holy moly! It looks like the sun rising.
What the fuck?
We'll just mute the clip. Like, we're just gonna... But we can see the explosion off in the distance. You see, folks, cursing in any foreign language is funny. Cursing in English, though, it kind of loses its draw. But we can see the explosion from multiple angles here.
It had a like an initial flash on it. Also, by the way, like go to the first part of that video again. Let's see that one more time. And the first part, that initial flash that you see right there, I saw people saying earlier, they said it looks like a tactical nuclear weapon going off, but there's a couple of problems with that. When a nuclear weapon goes off, it creates a very bright white flash. It's usually not orange, and you can see here on this one, there's an orange glow to it. So that's not normal for a nuke to really look like that. And also there's like a double flash, like with the nuke that usually happens, and you don't see that here with this one. So it's definitely not nuclear. Like I saw people wanting to jump to that conclusion earlier. Definitely not. Like there's zero chance of it being nuclear. So it was some large, like solid rocket fuel going off or something like that, or maybe like large amounts of munitions possibly. It was something like that.
Also, another thing that we have to add in as well is that if it was a nuclear explosion, you can't look at a nuclear explosion with the naked eye without going blind, almost immediately from most every distance. So you have to wear special sorts of visors and goggles and whatnot to be able to even look directly at a nuclear explosion. So, if this person was directly looking at it, they just went, "What the? I'm blind!" And instead they seem to be looking at it pretty normally, which suggests it certainly cannot be nuclear.
Yeah, but the site that this happened at, by the way, is a site I think where they manufacture the Arrow defense missiles for the interceptors in Israel. And the company is state owned that this facility is located at right here. It's owned by the Israeli state, so they conduct tests here from time to time. But we'll get into that in just a second. There was no pre-warning whatsoever before this thing exploded. It just exploded in the middle of the night. Nobody was expecting it.
Also, we have one other clip from the northern side right here. You see this little billboard on the side of the road saying support the IDF and whatnot. And then you see the explosion in the background. So, according to the Israelis, they put out a little bit of word on this, or at least what we were able to hear initially, which was this. There's no way that this was a controlled explosion. They're hiding something. This was from an Israeli blogger, by the way. It doesn't make sense. How do you believe that? Yes, it's crazy that Tamir conducts experiments at night and even on Saturday night. Unfortunately, I can't enter the Tamir firing range near Bet Shemesh to check what exploded, what the experiment was, and why specifically at night. I checked again with Tamir, which is apparently the company that operates this area. They insisted it was a pre-planned experiment. According to them, the experiment did not fail. There's no way to verify this at this stage. I asked how they explained the fireball. I never got an answer back. I asked why at night and on Saturday night. They answered that they work 24/7. I agree that this is strange behavior, but to convince you that it makes sense, I remind everyone that we're in Israel. Which
bro called up the company and said, "Hey, yo, why is there like this big nuke going off in the distance?" They said, "No response." And also he said, "Why are you working on a Saturday night?" We work 24/7. I'm not gonna lie, that sounds sus as hell. Like that explanation right there. That sounds very questionable.
man, they said, "Man, this is stupid. I'm calling them." Hello, this is Tomer. Yeah, I'm wondering what the hell was that giant ass explosion that just came from your place? Oh, it was an experiment. It worked well. Well, yeah, but why in the world was there like a giant ass fireball? Well, why are y'all blowing it up on Saturday night? Well, we work 24/7. It's like, dude, you couldn't make up a better comedy skit for that like conversation if you
Yeah.
tried. Like that,
Like-
that sounds very suspicious.
It's like, what kind of missile testing place is this? A 7-Eleven? It's like, what are they doing open 24/7? It's like they're open 24/7 at the missile plant. It's like the missile manufacturing facility. It's like, what kind of joint is this?
Man, also on top of that, it's like y'all don't work 24/7 blowing shit up on a Saturday night. There's a whole city literally just a half mile away from this place. It's like so they're saying, yeah, of course we just blow up giant loud ass bombs on a Saturday night without warning anybody, and it's just a part of our work. Like, the only other time, folks, that this has ever happened was in 2021. So this is clearly not normal. Like, whatever has happened here tonight is not normal. Also, additionally, we then were able to hear that according to the town of Bet Shemesh, the municipality denied that it was informed in advance by the officials from Tamer, which is an Israeli state-owned rocket propulsion company used by the IDF ahead of the explosion. And that's according to an Israeli media source, Hayom. So we can understand clearly that whatever the hell this was, it certainly was not planned, and the explosion was unbelievably large.
Man, if that was planned, it's like, I mean, you would think if that was planned, they would notify everybody in like the vicinity of the eyesight view of the thing. It's like, if people see this at night, I mean, it looks like I mean, if you don't know what a nuke explosion looks like, you might think it's a tactical nuke going off. You might think it's something like that. And especially in the midst of the Iran war happening and the recent attacks on Iran or Israel, it's like they would definitely notify people. So, I mean, this might be like a rocket test gone wrong, possibly. I just wonder if it did damage to the actual missile facility itself, because that's where they manufacture the interceptor missiles. So that might cause a problem for Israel's supply of interceptors in the future if it did damage.
Man, late at night, man, at the Israeli Police Heritage Museum, they're having an after-hours tour, and they're like, yeah, the Israeli police, we like to keep things quiet around here. Poof, like there's like a bright flash of light through the windows. They look outside and see this, and everyone's like, "What the man?"
No cause for concern, guys. We work 24/7. Go back to bed and shut up.
Oh man, and then just northeast, you got the Biblical Museum of Natural History as well, with this giant panoramic window for you to get the full might of Tamer blowing up some humongous shit in the middle of the night of like 3 miles away.
That sunrise over there on the left looks like the size of the explosion.
Man, honestly, man, that's probably what it made the surrounding landscape look like when it blew up. Someone woke up, man, and they went, "Morning already? I just went to sleep 30 minutes ago." Oh my lord. Also, man, this is like a pretty cool looking museum, honestly. Oh, it's the Hall of Kosher Classification. So these are the animals you can eat. That's a very interesting way to classify animals in a natural history museum. These are the ones you can eat. These are the ones you can't eat. I mean, imagine all the variations you would get from other foreign countries like China, for say, if they did the same sort of classification in a natural history museum.
Yeah, for real.
But anyways, moving us on from this whole deal, quite the explosion, I'd have to say, and we're still trying to figure out exactly what went on, because nobody in Israel knows what happened, nobody from the local HOA that called up Tamer knows what happened, and Tamer is kind of keeping a tight ship on getting any answers out to anybody about what that was. So, Matthew, what are people thinking about that right now, and what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so what was this ungodly explosion that happened in Israel? Because the place that operates this location where the explosion happens, they say it was pre-planned, no cause for concern. They work 24/7. They're workaholics. Go back to bed. But at the same time, though, it's kind of weird. It happened in the middle of the night. There was no warning allegedly given to the local municipality. So, I mean, even the Israelis who live there are saying this is odd behavior. And if the Israelis are saying it's odd behavior, I'm going to take their word for it. So what is happening? 42% say at looks like a possible attack, while 34% said it looks like a massive accident, and 12% said it looks like a possible missile test, and maybe that's simply what it was, and people got confused. I would say, in my personal opinion, it sounds like it might have been a massive accident. That's what it sounds like. Now, we don't know if there's any damage to the facility. Like, we don't know that because the company is saying it was a planned missile test. So if you take their word for it, then apparently nothing was damaged. It was something that they planned to do. But, I mean, the other surrounding details makes it look like it might not have been planned possibly. So that looks very close to Harriman, Utah. That the way it looked out there. That's very weird. That was odd as hell. Like, yeah, I thought you were looking at Utah when you just did that. That's weird.
Whoa!
But we'll get to that in just a minute.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
But I think it's a massive accident. That's my guess. I'm with 35%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say, I never thought Utah would look like Israel. But outside of that, I would have to say that it's most likely some sort of what do they call that, Matthew, here in the United States these days? They call it a rapid unscheduled disassembly. And I think that that's what happened here at this facility that's run by this company, Tamir, or however it's pronounced. Because that explosion did not look like it was a planned or scheduled one. It looked like whatever it was violent and well out of control of the test parameters if there was a test that was being run. So I would assume that it may be some sort of a massive failure of some sort. But if it was, and it was an attempted rocket test, and the rocket had some sort of like a failing O-ring or something like that within it that led to a rapid explosion, it most likely didn't damage anything other than the testing site itself, which means that the damage may be contained within that area, but we aren't really sure. But I would say it's definitely within the parameters of an accident, because there's really no other way to explain that away rather than it had to clearly be an accident. So, with that, I hope that addresses that well. Man, the wild in the chat on Gaw. Man, like it going crazy down there, acting crazy and silly. He don't even care no
Man, the Israelis, you know, a trip to Israel, visit the wall, check out the missile facility, possibly get a tour. Like, you never know. It looks like Utah. Looks like home.
Man, like, I gotta say, that's something. I mean, it really does look like Utah, though, folks. This legitimately looks like South Mountain or something right here, which is really bizarre. You know, Matthew, maybe that's why the Mormons, when they came out here, they called the place Zion. You know, because they did call it that.
Yeah, maybe so. Although I don't think the Israelis like that term.
What, Zion?
Yeah, you know, that's like when people say, "Oh, they're a Zionist" or something like that. I don't think they like that term.
Well, I think they still use. I don't think they say. I don't think anyone likes being called a Zionist, but I think that they do use the term Zion in Israel. Google that real quick, see if they do, because I think they do. Like in some instances.
Well, you said they named the plane that. Like, also Mount Zion's a historic hill in Jerusalem. By the way.
Interesting. That's very interesting there. But I would have to say, I mean, we got to show them Utah now, Matthew. We have to show them Utah, because y'all aren't going to believe.
Real quick.
Yeah, real quick. But y'all aren't going to believe what this looks like out here, because let me see here.
Actually, man, I'm not sure we have time for this. It's already 9:52, and we have a lot of news to go.
But it looks just like Utah. I mean, here it is right here. It literally looks just like it. That's weird. But anyways, moving us on out of Israel, we have also been able to hear that there was a KC-135 post that was made by CENTCOM today. We're going to skip this because we are running low on time. There's so much news to cover these days, folks. There was 50 bulletins tonight, and we only have so much time. And I'm trying, folks. I'm trying my best to go fast, but I can only talk so fast before people start complaining. So I'm trying my best here. I'm trying my best, okay? But we also were able to hear inside of the Strait of Hormuz from the United States today that, according to the president, he stated to the French channel BFM that he doesn't know if an agreement with Iran will be reached soon. And then he also stated that this was the calm before the storm, which is starting to give us an idea that there's going to be some war coming back here in the near future. In the meantime, the Iranians are setting up their own port authority for the Strait of Hormuz, and they're saying that the Iran system will be within the framework of its national sovereignty. On the new system, vessels will be directed along a designated route. Iran says only commercial vessels and parties cooperating with Iran will benefit from it. There will be fees imposed for vessels who wish to transit safely, and the Strait of Hormuz will remain closed to the operators of Project Freedom. So it does appear that they're still moving forward with that plan at large. Meanwhile, the U.S. is trying to get a coalition together of people within the area to join them, and according to news that we got from the Telegraph today, the current administration's officials are encouraging the UAE to become more deeply involved in the Iran war, including potentially seizing one of Tehran's Gulf islands. Meanwhile, in Abu Dhabi, Man, F the IRGC, man. Like, someone woke up and had PTSD from like the past few weeks.
Damn, like really just woke up out of the blue and had a flashback, I guess, about the it's like you know that time when you're like, I should have really fixed that guy up for messing with me. And you just wake up out of the blue and you're like, F that bastard. It's like damn, it's like okay, it's like all right then.
Man, whoa, cool it, Ahmed. Bro, like, let's calm it down. But moving on from that out of the UAE, we have also been able to hear additionally that near to the area of the U.S. blockade, we actually got to see the Russian Il-76 from the Ministry of Emergency Services making its way back to Russia. This thing stopped over in Somalia and the UAE, picking up Russian diplomats and personnel, and is now flying out of the area. Keep in mind that this very same thing happened months ago, right before the attack started on the 28th of February that killed Ali Khamenei. So it does appear fairly obvious at this point that the Russians are once again getting some fair indications at this moment that strikes will be beginning here soon by the United States against the Iranians. In the meantime, we also got to see that Abu Bilal al-Manuki, or as we like to call him, al-Duki, was blown up in northern Nigeria last night by the United States. And we actually got the footage today. Here it comes. I don't know what all the splots are around the area. That might be chain gun fire from an Apache. We're not really sure. But we can actually see some of the impacts around here. Oh, yeah, that's definitely chain gun fire. And then something blew up the compound of like a bomb of some sort, we're believing.
Al-Duki was in that.
Man, al-Duki was in the Dookie hut.
Damn, I wonder if he was on the shitter.
Man, man, he was on that. What the hell do they call those? Porta potties out here, Matthew. It's like the.
Oh, he was on a Dookie pot.
No, it's like the honey something.
Oh, a honey bucket.
Yeah, the honey bucket. Blood was on the honey bucket. But anyways, moving us on out of northern Nigeria, where all Dookie got obliterated and apparently scattered amongst the Dookie from the porta potty. We've also been able to hear that in Beijing, the Chinese have stated that they are reaching a tentative agreement with the United States on tariff reductions and trade cooperation. So now we're going the reverse direction from what we're supposed to be doing with the Chinese, which is winding everything down with them. Now we're winding everything up to a fever pitch. In the midst of this, Taiwan did shoot back at the United States statement from the office of the president about China big, Taiwan small, and all of that, and then warning them against declaring their own national sovereignty and independence. The Taiwanese government stated the following: Taiwan is a sovereign and independent democratic nation and is not subordinate to the People's Republic of China, which is probably one of the most pro-independent statements that they've ever officially made, and it was because the president is waffling on them now. So by the president's waffling on Taiwan, we might be seeing that the Taiwanese are going to start escalating the situation with their own rhetoric to where a war is forced between the two of them, because China generally doesn't let statements like these, or even close to these sorts of statements, slide. So definitely looking like things are not going to be going well at this point. And I also see that Matthew's saying policy, not the president. Well, I mean, still, the words that he said has made the Taiwanese say this in response, and that's going to incense the Chinese, because statements even getting close to this in the past have gotten the Chinese to escalate. So, like, at that point, there's really no other way to look at it. I can't say, just because the wind blew a certain way in Taiwan, he literally said something that got this knee jerk from Taiwan, and this isn't going to go well, so that generally is what it is. But moving us on out of Taiwan, we have also been able to hear of some other developments within the United States of America today from AutoZone. Y'all wouldn't believe that. I mean, like, if you ever told me, folks, 4 years ago that we would cover a letter that came out today from AutoZone, I would have told you that that would never happen.
Also, before we get into this, by the way, this is allegedly an internal memo. It's allegedly. Of course, now I need to preface it with this. Anybody can technically go grab the AutoZone logo and put it on top of a document. So the source is saying that this is an internal memo, but take it with a grain of salt, though, because it could be something possibly that they just found somewhere and they weren't able to verify it or something. So take it with a grain of salt. I've seen a lot of people reposting it, which sort of lends credibility to the idea it could be real. But, I don't think AutoZone themselves have put out a statement about it. So take it in that context.
Really quickly, Matthew, go see if AutoZone has a Twitter and if they've responded to this at all.
Let's see, AutoZone, and this is a motor oil shortage you're talking about here.
Yeah, because this tweet right here has gotten 2 million views, and if this was false, I'm pretty sure AutoZone would have directly addressed this on their official Twitter and said this is not factually correct. We never posted this or wrote this sort of a letter.
So I'm not necessarily seeing AutoZone putting out a statement directly about it. I'm seeing some news articles from MSN saying Nissan joins Toyota in warning about a looming motor oil shortage. So it does appear that automakers are warning about it, but AutoZone themselves has not put out an official statement about it. So this was allegedly a memo sent to the employees of AutoZone for training purposes, but we can't independently verify it.
So we're going to read it to y'all, but once again, keep it with a grain of salt. AutoZone might come out and say that this letter was never actually published or existed within their company. So let's take it all with a grain of salt, but we will read it. Team, when speaking about unusual or historic supply chain disruptions, it's common for those of us who have been in the business for a moment to reference situations from decades ago. But the truth is, if you've been with us for even a year, you've already worked through one major supplier loss and related rebranding. If you've been with us for a bit longer, you worked through one of the most difficult reshuffling of inventories and changes in sales flows in our company's history during COVID. That's why I'm not worried by what we're facing today. Preparation and the dedication of everyone on our team members will see us through just as you all did before. So what new challenge are we facing? In the interest of total transparency, there's zero benefit in mincing words. Due to the unfolding situation in the Middle East, we're facing the largest supply shortage of lubricating fluids in the modern history of America. Realistic, middle-of-the-road estimates are for our average available supply in this product category to drop by 40%. So that is currently what we're hearing is allegedly the internal letter that's been issued by AutoZone. But it does appear that if this letter is correct, and this is an actual letter from AutoZone, they're now stating that motor oils are going to be dropping in supply by 40%, which is a
Yeah.
humongous drop in available supply if that information is accurate.
I'll say this outside of the alleged AutoZone letter here, if that is true or not, we're not totally sure yet. That's just being circulated on social media. Outside of that, though, I have seen that automakers, like I just mentioned, are saying that motor oils are going to start running short. And also, I've seen some other rumors that some of the like retail stores are saying that they're going to start running out soon as well. So basically, what that's causing is it's causing people to start hoarding the motor oil to a large degree. They're starting to buy it in large numbers, which also, by the way, exacerbates the problem. That's going to run out quicker because people are trying to hoard it. Also, I've seen a lot of people trying to rush to the local dealership to go get an oil change before the motor oil runs out. So it seems to be that most people are in agreement. I've even seen the analysts saying it, that apparently nobody really knows exactly what's about to happen with the motor oil, but they believe there's about to be a major shortage with it. So it seems to be credible, but we'll have to see.
And we definitely will have to see. And of course, we'll be awaiting a statement from AutoZone because I'm pretty sure someone from their company officers is going to come out and make a statement about this letter, either claiming that it's true or claiming that it's false, or they might make no statement. And with a lack of a statement, that would start leaning us towards the idea this might actually be a actual letter. If they decide not to address it at all or to address it and then claim that it's actually a true letter that was issued. But moving us on out of the United States of America, we have also been able to hear of a lot of news out of the Ukraine war today. But before we get on into that news, I do want to take a brief moment to wrap up our last Iran poll from the Middle East at the moment, because a lot of people have been talking about the statements by the United States to try and get the UAE to hop in on military operations that will be coming up in the future and restarting against Iran. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that right now, and what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so it sounds like, according to internal sources, that U.S. officials are allegedly asking the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, to defend against Iran, which is a reasonable request, by the way. It's not too much to ask for them to defend their own country. But also on top of that, we're hearing a new ask that the U.S. is making for the UAE. They're asking the UAE to possibly consider invading Iran's Lavon Island, which is a pretty important crude oil export island that Iran controls right off their coast. So what are your thoughts about that? 41% said the UAE should invade the Iranian island. They should just go for it. 24% said they should help, but not necessarily invade. And 26% said that's absurd to ask the UAE to do that. And to be honest, folks, I'm not even sure if the UAE has the ability to invade an island like that. I'm not even sure if they have enough military might to pull something like that off. And also, we don't really know the UAE to be a military power, really. Like, they really can't really use their power to that degree. So to ask them to invade an island, that would be hard enough for the U.S. military. For the UAE, that could be a career ender for a lot of their military people. So I don't think that's a good idea. That sounds like something that would probably get the UAE slaughtered to a large degree. So I'm with the 24%. They They should help defend the area, but they should not necessarily invade. But Enforcer, what say you?
It's impossible. They have no navy to be able to conduct that sort of an operation with, and they also have no air available air power to make this possible. They could try and conduct a heliborne invasion of the island, but I mean, look at the amount of helicopters that they have and what type. They have some Avantis. What the hell is that? That's not even a helicopter. What is this thing? They have two of them.
That's a planocopter.
That thing is absurd looking. This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen today. And that's saying a lot. I mean, that's a lot. But they have two of them. They then have 8 Augusta Westland 139s. Honestly, very clean looking, but that's just not enough of them to be able to conduct a heliborne invasion successfully. They have 1 Bell 407, which is a news helicopter, 4 Bell 412s, which is basically just a civilian version of the Huey. They also have 2 AS 550s, which are modern-day Gazelles for the larger part, and then they have 3 EC-145s, which we call the Lakota here in the U.S. Army, and those are used for reconnaissance operations in the Air Cav regiment. So, this generally is this just isn't the right kind of a force that you would need to have to be able to conduct a successful heliborne landing, and they don't have a navy to be able to conduct an amphibious landing, so it's largely out of the question for them. They could definitely conduct airstrikes. They have an air force and a multi-role capability that is definitely capable of that. They have about 100 multi-role platforms, 55 F-16s, and 44 Mirage 2000s that are available right now. So they can definitely help out with offensive airstrikes on Iran, but asking them to try and take and hold any land outside their own borders, it's well outside of their military's design and scope, unfortunately.
I would say so. This is like the equivalent of like if you're in like high school or something like that, and you go up to the guy who's not necessarily well built, he's not really like, muscular or something like that, and you're like, hey, go over there and kick that bully's leg out from underneath him, and the kid's like, yeah, let me try it. So they go over there to do it, and then they get their ass whooped, and they get screwed up, and everybody's like giggling in the corner. It's like, that's basically what the U.S. is asking the UAE to do. If this is an accurate story right here, it's like, we're basically asking the UAE to go get jacked up to a large degree. They don't have the ability. They don't have the ability to pull this off. If they go to do this, they're going to lose a lot of guys, and they might get jacked up so bad that they can't recover from it possibly.
Let's look at their Navy real quick. I mean, I just got to make sure that I'm saying this right, because I don't know all their stuff off the top of my head, so I have to go look. Oh, yeah, they're, no, this ain't happening, man. They have some minesweepers. Hey, they have minesweepers. That could help. I mean, that could help with clearing out the minefield once we make it safe enough. So they have that. They have some fast attack boats, which are basically just coastal patrol vessels, which won't really do much of anything. And then they have some offshore patrol vessels. This one absolutely looks sick. I mean, like, that picture of the bow is actually pretty cool. But there's no amphibious landing support ships to speak of in their whole Navy. And their Navy is pretty much non-existent. It's mostly corvettes and smaller coastal patrol vessels, so they don't even have any projection capabilities to even try and support any landing force that they'd somehow be able to land, which they can't, on any island in the Persian Gulf. So it's well out of their capabilities. Let's just cut it short, folks. Well out of their capabilities to do that. We're basically asking a string bean with a rifle to go and try and get in a fist fight. He might be able to shoot someone, but he's going to get his ass beat in a fist fight.
Yeah, the UAE is full of a bunch of rich guys that love their Lamborghinis and they love their high-class luxuries. They're not brawlers. They're not people out here like scrapping in the street and stuff like that. So to ask them to go invade the island is a little bit crazy.
Yeah, it's just out of the question. It's just it. It's out of the question. That's all we have to say, looking at the materials that they would have to be able to try and pull it off. We also got to see that over the UK today, there was an American TC-135 that was on the way over. To show you all a picture of one of these, that's what it looks like. It's basically just a KC-135 that's been turned, apparently, from what they're saying, it's a stratolifter. But I don't know if the TC-135 actually is, because I don't know every variant of the 135 series, so it's a reconnaissance aircraft. I don't know why they're calling it a stratolifter, because that would usually suggest they're hauling some heavy cargoes. But this is a reconnaissance.
I thought it was a transport.
No, this is a reconnaissance aircraft.
It's a KC-135, you say?
A TC-135.
Oh, a TC-135. Okay. Okay, yeah, it's an ISR aircraft, so you're right. Yeah, I was thinking for a second, I was like, wait a minute, Casey. I'm like, KC-135, that's like not that. But yeah, I guess it is. Also, by the way, that bulge up there at the front, definitely an ISR aircraft.
Yeah, also the KC-135, just to remind everyone here, because we kind of got confused here on air for a second, the KC-135 is the aerial refueling tanker variant of this airframe. The TC or RC-135 is the reconnaissance variant of the airframe, and then they have a million other variants of the 135 series. Unfortunately, folks, I just don't memorize all of them, so this one kind of eluded me. But when they said in the tweet that it was a Stratolifter, I was like, ain't no way in hell that this thing is a Stratolifter. I was like, that wouldn't be able to haul squad. Like, with that kind of a size, but...
So what's the significance of this thing showing up? Because to my knowledge, it's kind of rare to see a TC-135 lurking around. So what's the significance of this, other than it being an ISR aircraft? What does that generally indicate?
Let's see here. I hate to tell you, I don't know the exact uses and technology on board this aircraft, but to quickly see if I can find the TC somewhere on
Because
here.
isn't this like the complementary aircraft, the like the RC-135, the rivet joint? This is a complementary aircraft, I think.
Oh, sorry, hang on. Wait, it's very mundane. 3 aircraft are in service for crew training and lack fully functional mission equipment. So apparently this thing is on a training mission right now, which has nothing to do with CENTCOM.
Oh, okay. Well, that sort of takes the teeth out of that whole story right there.
Yeah, so it doesn't really appear to be much of anything, folks. It just looks to be that a TC-135 is taking a pretty long training flight out to Europe, and it's probably going to be coming back. So it'll probably just hang out in UCOM's AOR for a little while, and then we'll see it fly on back to the United States. So moving us on out of all of this, folks, it's now time for us to get on into Ukraine. And the pacing might seem a little bit off, folks, because a lot of y'all are probably like, Enforcer, it's 2 hours and 10 minutes in. There's no way you can cover everything in Ukraine in like 10 minutes. Believe it or not, there's not really a lot, sadly, that came out of Ukraine. Unfortunately, today there just wasn't a lot of frontline footage, so we only have a couple of things to cover in Ukraine from the actual front. Their drone attack was unbelievably impressive today. Frontline footage, however, was very sparse. We did get news today, which we already covered the poll on way earlier, that the Ukrainian border guards are preparing the border and defensive positions for a possible Russian or Belarusian invasion. Significant minefields, dragon teeth, and also defensive infantry positions have already been set up, and the area is being constantly patrolled by a significant portion of the Ukrainian border guards, which are making sure to keep an eye on any growing developments within that area, and to be able to try and conduct enough defensive deterrence that any sort of an attempted offensive within that area would most likely be unsuccessful. Moving us on into our location unknowns, we have also been able to see a couple of interesting clips, like these 2 Ukrainian MiGs flying low. Oh, they added that music. Man, I know that sound. They're about to go, welcome to Ukraine. Like, it's about to be that music. Like, it's that one for sure. But here comes the MiGs. The 2 of them.
Ah, yes, polluting the sky. Look at that Russian aircraft. You gotta love them. They didn't have an EPA in Russia.
Man, those things definitely don't even meet Tier 1 EPA regulations. A real tragedy. We also got to see old Spider Eyes here in the Ukrainian Special Forces, doing their thing. I honestly gotta say, a pretty cool picture.
You know what that is? That's a Daniel. I recognize that furniture, or at least the furniture's Daniel. That looks like the stock off of a DDM-4 right there. Also, nice nods, by the way. Very nice setup. If the Ukrainians can have nods, how come we can't have them? I thought this was a free-for-all.
Honestly, man, why don't we? But these nods are very high end. These are very nice nods. There's different variants. There's the monocle. The monocle is just one sight lens, and you put it over one eye. Very, very limited field of view, and usually most of them are primitive. Then you have I forgot what it's called, but it's like the bifocal. It's not a bifocal, it's just the 2-lensed variant, and then you have the 4-lensed variant like this one. And this allows for the widest field of view, and usually these are the latest generation nods, which give you the highest quality sort of imagery coming through the sight as well. So pretty decent. But moving us on from that, and also, by the way, just to give the credit, this is a photo from the Special Operations Forces of Ukraine, which all of y'all should know. I mean, it's not like an average infantryman's going to be kitted out with nods of that high of a quality. But moving us on from that, we also were able to see that the Ukrainians were cooking up a Russian position today. I'm not lying. This guy literally just poured gasoline on it and set it on fire. So there's a Ukrainian just chucking some gas at it and then setting the whole thing alight. The Ukrainians are getting pretty creative with knocking out Russian dugouts, kind of to the point that it's making you wonder how far can they really take it before it starts getting into questionable legality. We need increased lethality, not tepid legality. But moving us on from that, we also got the Russian infantry report over the course of the day.
Oh.
And holy moly!
Whoa! I mean, what do they
yeah.
do? 7 Bobcats. That's a lucky 7 for today. I think the Russians are taking a bit of a pounding, and they're not on a tiny post. But tell us more.
I tell you, it's not looking good. But according to Miss DC, keeper of the record, she stated that one plane, a Berry of 200 PS amphibious aircraft, was destroyed at the Yes military airfield. Yes! We also get to see the 253 vehicles and fuel trucks are tied for the 14th highest daily loss. And the missing category is 9 ground robotic complexes, which is the 3rd highest daily loss of the war. Over the past 24 hours, we have been able to confirm that 1,230 Russian soldiers have been wounded and killed, along with 5 APCs, 253 supply trucks, 2 main battle tanks, 48 artillery pieces, 1,865 drones, 1 aircraft, which was the Berry of 200, 2 anti-aircraft systems, and 7 Bobcat skid steers. So it was a very good day. Moving us on out of our location unknowns, we also were able to see that within the Svatove front, the Ukrainians were cooking up more Russian positions.
Горит родной.
I don't even know what that thing was, to be entirely honest with y'all, but they did blow it up to pieces.
Нахуй. Пиздец, 30 фит пивишек уебало по нему, нахуй.
This is called an armored oven.
Охуеть.
Man, they call this thing the Ruski oven, блядь.
Man, if I ever get enough money and I build like a big house, because you have to build a mansion if you get money. You can't just live in a normal house. I want this thing right here in the kitchen as the oven.
Man, that's going to be a huge oven. You got to be like hosting parties every day to get your money's worth out of this thing. You got to be cooking for like dozens of people. But moving us on out of that, we also were able to see that down in the area of Donetsk, the Ukrainians were also targeting Russian forces around the area of Donetsk City and the rest of the Donetsk Oblast, currently under Russian occupation. There it is, the city of Donetsk. And specifically, the Donetsk Arena, блядь. Ah, yes. Flying over the city. There it is. Donetsk Arena. That's what that says in Cyrillic. You can just see them flying over the city freely. The Russians can do nothing about it because they've lost the ability. And now we can see them.
They're just helpless. They're helpless. What can you do? I mean, what can you ask of them?
Russia, they're weak. Feeble.
Russia is weak. It's feeble.
Ukraine is not weak. Yeah, whatever, pal. I would take you aboard and smash it to pieces.
Man, I tell you what, Kramer always had a thing for pissing off the audience.
Man, Kramer was the guy who got along with everybody, though. Up until that whole Laugh Factory thing happened.
Yeah, I don't think he was factoring out any laughs in the factory that night.
I gotta say, folks, from what I remember from that footage, nobody was laughing. Kind of not living up to the name. I feel like that was false advertisement to have that happen in the Laugh Factory, Not really, mass-producing laughs there. Mass-producing other emotions. Not necessarily good ones. But we can also see the Russians continuing to get slammed throughout the area of Donetsk. It does appear the Ukrainian drone forces did an amazing job. We also got to see near the Avdiivka area that long-range strikes were also being conducted on Russian logistics 30 miles behind the lines, as the Ukrainian drones are generally making sure that even rear-line Russian logistics are no longer safe, which generally it had been assumed that they were. Honestly, that goes hard.
The hell's that dude? That dude's wandering through.
he's just wandering through the industrial ruins. Man, they're doing like a whole TikTok edit on this thing.
And the car guys got a hold of this one. The car guys like to film those cinematic like roller shots and stuff with the cars going down the street. It's like, man, look at this. They're adding sparkle effects.
Sparkles on this shit.
Bro, this is the local car cinematographers. They just happen to be in the area when the thing caught on fire.
Bro, pit goes hard. Feel free the screen. What type of music are they playing? Bro, it is literally the stereotypical like car music thing that they're doing, and this is crazy.
There's the roller shot.
Bro, they're throwing in all of the tropes. Dang. And look, they're throwing in the same guy walking in front of it again, just out in the industrial wasteland. That's crazy.
He's the actual.
Man, he is, man. They're going to put a shiesty on him here in a little bit and have him, like, crouch down in front of the burning Ural and, like, do, like, a gang sign or something. But moving us on down to Mariupol, we also get to see that another Ural got destroyed down here. There's a Ukrainian drone coming in to knock out another one, and there is a knocked-out Russian supply truck on the highway to Mariupol. What a tragedy for the Russians. They're not having a good time of it at all. But to give you all a little bit of a frontline breakdown really quickly, right now, we're seeing that all fronts are stagnant, save for a few. The Ukrainians are making some counteroffensive progress around the area of Torskay. They did retake the town of Dubrova just outside of Liman the other day. We've also been able to hear that the Ukrainian armed forces are still seeing some minimal gains within the area of the Novopavlivka front, although those are very modest gains at this point, and the rest of the fronts are currently in a stalemate at this moment, with no changes being visibly seen on the front day to day, at least for right now. So with that, it is time for us to move on up into Kyiv and get to the speech from the President of Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky. And so, without further ado,
Шановні
here's the
українці,
speech.
з Українки сьогодні ми говорили з міністром закордонних справ України Андрієм Сибігою по ситуації навколо Придністров'я. Напередодні був новий крок Росії щодо Придністров'я. Росіяни спростили можливість отримати громадянство для вихідців всього регіону Молдови. Крок специфічний, означає не тільки те, що Росія таким чином шукає собі нових солдатів, бо громадянство означає військовий обов'язок. Це і позначення Росією території Придністров'я як начебто своєї. Вони в Москві часто кажуть різним співрозмовникам, що їх цікавить начебто тільки Донбас. Насправді далеко не тільки Донбас, ми маємо на це реагувати. Тим більше, що російський військовий контингент і розташування спецслужб в Придністров'ї – це для нас також виклик. Ми зацікавлені у стабільній, сильній Молдові. Я доручив МЗС України відповідно контактувати з Молдовою щодо спільної оцінки та спільних дій. Я очікую також пропозицій від українських спецслужб, від нашої розвідки по формату реагування. Росії треба більше думати про свої НПЗ та про свою нафтоперевалку, а не про громадян інших держав і землю інших народів. Я хочу подякувати за цей тиждень і за нашу далекобійність усім нашим залученим підрозділам. Українські далекобійні санкції весь тиждень були активними. Воїни сил спеціальних операцій, сил безпілотних систем, наших ракетних військ та інших складових Збройних сил України, воїни Служби безпеки України, наші розвідки ГУР, Служба зовнішньої розвідки. Дякую всім вам, воїни, за влучність. Ми працюємо активно і на традиційному санкційному напрямку. Ключове – це обривати всі канали постачання в Росію компонентів для виробництва ракет і дронів. В ударі цього тижня по Києву росіяни використали ракети, які були вироблені в цьому році. Без компонентів від компаній з Європи, Японії, Сполучених Штатів у росіян би просто не вийшло зробити ці ракети. Так само і з більшістю інших засобів ураження, які використовують ці виродки для ударів по наших містах, по звичайних будинках українців. Зв'язки Росії зі світом, які працюють на війну, це пряма загроза життю. Не тільки у нас, тут в Україні, якщо російська машина війни вистоїть, її наступні удари можуть бути і проти Європи, і проти інших сусідів Росії у більш віддалених регіонах. Російське зло вже себе показало і в Сирії, в африканських країнах. Зараз росіяни багато в чому сковані тут нашою обороною. Але що буде далі? Куди далі росіяни підуть? Потрібна рішучість штовхати цю країну так, щоб вона ставала більш безпечною для світу. Санкції, всі інші форми тиску – найкращий інструмент для цього. Ще одне. Сьогодні я говорив з президентом Франції. Ми зараз домовляємось з партнерами про те, щоб формат Україна плюс країни Є3, Франція, Британія, Німеччина, щоб цей формат отримав додатковий зміст. Будуть зустрічі, будуть результати. Ми готуємо важливі зовнішньополітичні речі. Я дякую всім, хто допомагає нам. Також не зупиняємося, щоб були і наступні етапи обмінів. Цього тижня був перший етап з обміну 1000 на 1000. Ми готуємо наступні. Триває робота щодо списків у всіх необхідних погоджень. Я дякую тим, хто залучений. Треба повертати українців з полону. Треба і надалі посилювати наші зв'язки зі світом, нашу державу, наших людей. Слава Україні!
And
And Hiram Slava. And Zelensky's looking tired. He's looking tired. Looking tired of Putin looking like a weak leader with no cards. That's what he's tired of. But really, he actually does look actually very tired. It could be because maybe he's having to stay in the bunker, possibly because of the threat that Russia's going to attack the decision-making centers. That could be part of it. Why he's looking that tired. He might not be able to get his normal night's sleep because he might be in the bunker.
Listen, Blood, you're overthinking everything. I simply walked into the wrong door, and I'm stuck with this Squidward bastard in the back rooms. I'm trying to find my way out of this at the moment.
Honestly, I think when he looks like he's in the back rooms, I think he's in a bunker.
Probably is. I mean, he could be anywhere, really. Definitely probably a bunker. But, yeah, man, I gotta say, it surely is crazy. I will say this, though. There is no way for any sort of geolocation to happen in that room because it's literally just a solid white wall. Honestly, man, he looks like he's in one of those rooms that, like, those guys in the IRA were in, when they put on the shiesty and be like, we have to liberate Ireland, like when they were doing that whole deal. It's honestly like kind of like the same like room kind of a thing, just solid white wall and nothing else. But anyways, all jokes aside, folks, it is time for us to move on into the second segment of the stream where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. Yippee! And we get to talk about literally anything and everything, folks. Anything and everything under the sun. We get to answer all of your questions, big and small, and we also get to chit-chat with y'all about anything and everything except for religion, politics, climate change, and whether the A-10 is relevant in modern warfare or not. And I gotta say, it's going to be an absolute blast. And so, Matthew, please, take it away. What do we got?
Okay, so it is time. It is time to finally get to the questions from the live chat, the super chat questions, and the Morse code decoders. And of course, if there is more breaking news to cover, we will break from the question segment to cover that breaking news. I can say that right now we have not gotten any new information out of Moscow. That right now is what I'm currently monitoring the most at the moment. We're waiting to see what the damage to the airports are around the perimeter of the central city of Moscow. So right now we don't have any new information about that. Also, by the way, we're not expecting any breaking news on Iran tonight to be breaking out beyond this point. If there is anything that's going to happen, it could pop off maybe tomorrow possibly, but we'll have to wait and see though. There are some indications that maybe things are coming close to happening, but we have seen this before, and generally it's not a reliable indicator to let us know when it's exactly going to happen. So it's anybody's guess at this point when the Iran war is going to kick back off. But jumping first into our first super chat of the last segment, this one goes to Con45, who puts in a $50 support, by the way. And thank you very much, Con, for that very generous support, and we do appreciate that. He said, guys, I do not believe the UAE has any responsibility for this mess, except now to defend themselves. And I have been to the beautiful, civilized, and peaceful city of Dubai many times as a tourist. This war started with a tweet, and no one wanted this.
I would say that generally I would mostly agree with that because the UAE doesn't really have anything in their possession that would really help them do anything offensive rather than airstrikes. But I would have to say, though, that the UAE just sitting on the side defensively is not exactly the greatest outcome. And of course, I'm not saying let's try and make them invade an island. That would be ridiculous. But if they could try and airstrike targets of the Iranian forces around the Strait of Hormuz, that would not only help us out greatly, it would help them out greatly in reopening their ports to the global oil trade and getting them back in the business of making money, which is well within their interest, well within our interest. It's a net positive thing for them to get involved offensively in that regard. And I think that as far as making the sales pitch to these Gulf states, we should be saying to them, because once again, they don't have to join if they don't want to, so we want to make it sound kind of good for them. We'll do all the heavy lifting. We just need y'all to bomb these targets of the Iranian armed forces around the Strait of Hormuz for us. And that will greatly help us out. This will make this a lot easier to pull off. And it's also going to reopen the shipping routes that y'all use for trade where y'all can start making money again. So please help us out with this because it's going to be helping us out greatly. We're going to be eternally grateful to all of y'all. And it's also going to be helping yourselves out. So, please hop in and try and help out if you can, if you would like to, because it's in all of our interest to do so. That would be the best approach that we could make, because to be entirely, like, people for some reason in America act like there's this sense of entitlement that America has that we can just like call on other people to do stuff, kind of like there are dogs, and make them jump when we tell them to. And that's not how the world works. Clearly, every country in the world can sit back and force us to deal with us on our own if they want to. Hmm?
Is that what the Chinese mean when they say "you American dog"? Is that what they mean?
No, I think they mean dog because they look down upon the dogs.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm joking. I'm joking.
I mean,
by the way.
man, I heard that they had that natural history museum like they had in Israel, where they had like the kosher animals. They had the dog in like the food exhibit. So I mean, I think they just look down on them generally as kind of like a food animal. But outside of that, I would have to say generally that would be the best sort of approach that we could see at the moment. Because you can't really force anybody in the world to join in the conflict. They kind of have to join in their own volition. So we have to work on a whole deal of grace, a whole deal of niceties, a whole deal of things that a lot of people for some reason think that we don't have to work on, because otherwise they could just say screw us, and we're just going to sit back and watch y'all flounder because we're economically screwed anyway, so who cares. That could be their approach. But I definitely see where you're coming from, Con, but I would still say it would be beneficial for them to hop in and help us, because it's also helping themselves out. And I think that would be a good way to pitch it to them, and hopefully someone's thinking that in the government right now, because if they're not, they're probably not ever going to hop in. But a huge thanks to you for the support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And I also got to say, that's interesting that you've gone to Dubai a couple of times. We've actually had an offer twice now to go to Abu Dhabi, but I've personally just not been a big fan of that, because it was to go market guns for arms company in the UAE at an arms expo. And
No, it wasn't to market the guns. It was just to go there, just to live stream from the expo. That's all it was.
well, the one offer that I had gotten before was to go there with like a group and like hang out at their booth right across from. Well, I think that was the one that we actually got, was to hang out with their booth right across from Kalashnikov, which was on the other side of the aisle. And that was why we were like, I think we'll pass. like we were like, I don't know about that one.
I don't want the Russians standing right across from me because, I don't know who's who, like at this place like that. So you don't know if maybe somebody lurking around, somebody's like, yeah, there's those bastards right there that's been talking bad about Putin. We're going to fix them up. Because, these people are involved with the military that are hanging around this thing. So you never can tell. Honestly, like I'm just very paranoid about going to foreign countries, especially ones that have, enemies hanging out in it, like the Russians and people like that. It's really kind of sketchy. I did see another YouTuber, though, apparently took them up on that offer and went to it. He was fine at the thing, but generally, though, he hasn't taken a very strong stance against Russia quite like we have. He just generally covers it more neutrally. So he probably wouldn't be that big of a target for the Ruskies. But we've gone out of our way for 4+ years to advocate for Ukraine, so that might make us a little bit different.
We've also dissed on Xi Jinping, Kim Jong-un, Ali Khamenei, the Russians, basically every enemy of the United States, and they would all be at that arms expo to some degree. Narenko was there, Kalashnikov was there. I think some Iranian arms companies were also there during those years. I think that's going to change when the next one comes around. But it's like I don't really want to get in the midst of trying to kind of like hang out with the Kuwaitis and also be listed as a foreign agent, mind you all, if we did that, to try and hang out with a Kuwaiti arms company, well, actually a UAE arms company, and then get listed as a foreign agent, and then have basically every single enemy of America in that same building, possibly even knowing what we said about them. It's like that wouldn't be a good spot to be in. But
also, I don't want to be involved in anything that's not directly in American interest like that. Like what they can sell all the weapons they want in the UAE, but that's none of my business to a large degree. It's like that's not our country, that's not our business, and we don't want to be shills for somebody else unless it's American interest and American companies. Then we have no interest.
Wait a minute, Matthew. I just got an email from the Saudi Wealth Fund. I got to tell you, folks, Saudi Arabia is a great place. It's a wonderful place.
No, you didn't get no email from them. I heard they're reeling back.
I heard that they're starting to roll that whole thing back a little. All jokes aside, but I'm not really one, folks, at all for hawking anything from other countries. I respect our allies greatly, but I would even draw the line at that as well. It has to be American or it's nothing, because we're Americans after all. And I also wouldn't want to get listed as a foreign agent. Which is not really a great thing, folks, because if you go over there and do something like that, by the letter of the law, you have to list yourself as a foreign agent at that point, and I don't really like that. But anyways, I hope that does address that the best that we can, and a big thanks to your support, Con45, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a $30 support from none other than Chef Danny B. And thank you very much, Chef Danny, for that $30 support. He says, Chef Danny again, and kind of a funny story on Thanksgiving. My neighbors called 911 on me because they thought my house was on fire because I had to get up at 3 a.m. to get the smokers lit. So they thought the house was on fire. And LLT, LSA.
That's crazy.
I guess they weren't invited to the cookout. After that right there, I call 911 and says, just the smokers in the backyard. What y'all freaking out about? We're just back here smoking them meats and slathering them in Sweet Baby Ray's. What say you?
I gotta say, them smokers, those smokers really do let off a lot of smoke. And that's crazy though. Calling the fire department, like, shouldn't they have come over to y'all's house and like knocked on the door if they were that concerned and be like, hey, are y'all up? Like, do y'all have a fire going on? Is everything okay over here? Y'all need to get out of the house, before they call like the fire. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like. I kind of see where they're coming from. Maybe they cared enough to call the fire department. I feel like I still would have run over to y'all's house at the same time while I was calling 911 and be like, "Hey, are y'all okay over here? Y'all need to get out. Your house is on fire." But to each their own, I suppose. But that's a crazy story.
Get that smoke off my lawn.
Oh man, what if they were a Karen? Hey, get your damn smoke under control. My dog has asthma or something like that.
Yeah. The trees are getting hurt by the smoke.
I can't breathe. It's choking me. like they're always so dramatic, like the Karens are. But I don't know who I don't know who these people. I don't know who they are. But if they were a Karen, then that's ridiculous. If they were a concerned neighbor, then that's actually kind of admirable of them that they called 911. But that is a crazy story, though, Chef Danny B. A pretty funny one to be able to recount. But a huge thanks to you for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 20 from Ron Fannin. And thank you very much, Ron Fannin, for that $20 support. He said, Slava Ukraine, and take one from the chat.
Hey, and Slava Ukraine. And we will make sure to take one from the chat in your honor, Ron. So what do we got from the live chat, Matthew?
And this one is going to go to none other than Bob, who said, my question is, will drones ever become near silent to improve stealth? And we have some of those here in the West, some of those near silent drones. The West invests in the very, very highest end drone systems, which is cool, but it's not really modern warfare. But they're usually used for example, for really like nonstop constant surveillance. Like if you want to have a drone flying around completely undetected over a certain area for an extended period of time, that's where those near silent drones really prove to be very helpful. The U.S. has, what is it called? The RQ-180 or 170, something like that. That one is pretty silent. And also it's stealth as well. So that's one of them. And also the Israelis have their own homemade version of that as well. That might have been inspired by ours, maybe. But that's what those are mainly used for. Now that little thing you're showing right there, that's the Switchblade, isn't it?
That's the Black Hornet drone, which is the
Black Hornet.
Yeah, it's the ultra silent, ultra small reconnaissance drone that's able to literally get in amongst people and they won't notice it because it's so quiet and so low profile with its size.
Yeah, but also doesn't it like break the bank for one of those little things? Like how much are those?
It's 40 grand per unit. So, it's not cheap.
Yeah, it looks like something that Warthogs would have come out with for kids.
I mean, really, it does. But the RQ-170, it has noise reduction built into it, but it's not completely silent. He
said near silent.
Huh?
He said near silent.
Oh, near silent. Yeah, so it is near silent, but you were saying like it doesn't have any noise. I was like, man, this thing's got a jet engine.
No, I was thinking it was near silent.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant that was like totally silent. That's at least how I heard it. But I was like, man, this thing ain't close to being like near silent. Like it's quiet at like 40,000 feet, which is where it hangs out with the noise reduction built into it, because it does have some noise reduction built in, but that's like a marginal improvement. It's like 10% quieter than most other, turbofan or turbojet engines. Well, turbofans actually. So it's not extremely quiet, but at 30,000, 40,000 feet, you're never going to hear it. Because, here's the real question, folks. When a commercial aircraft flies over your head at 30,000 feet, do you hear it? No. So you're definitely not hearing this thing with a 10% reduction in noise volume. So you're certainly not hearing this one at all. So there are some drones like this that do exist in the West. But the thing about it is, though, is that at least for now, it's not really an issue to make them silent. And also on top of that, anti-drone technology is already starting to work towards kinetic defense solutions, which sounds very corporate, but that basically means just shooting them down with a gun. And that requires some form of infrared, usually, to be able to spot them up there in the air. And so because of that, they're generally already working towards just visually spotting them. So size might become an issue where they need to make them smaller and lower profile, but noise isn't really the issue right now, at least in the defensive capabilities, because not really a lot of the defense weaponry works off of their acoustic profile. It more so works off of their visual profile to some degree.
The kinetic weapon knows where it is because it knows where it isn't. The kinetic weapon is tungsten carbide made from the finest materials of the utmost precision in Germany, because Germany is associated with precision.
And then they have some name like Schloss or something like that for the company. It's like the most German sounding thing you can imagine.
And it's a nice German blade made in China.
It's a Japanese blade folded 10,000 times, made in Vietnam. Like about batteries sold separately.
And then, all those, like, have y'all seen these, like, goofy, like, Instagram reels and, like, TikTok reels going around? They'll basically be counterfeiting, like, American top brands, like, like all these luxury brands and stuff like that. And they'll be like, it'll be like some Chinese TikTok page or something like that. And it'll be like, our factory has mass produced it. It's the new thing. And it's like, shows like some counterfeit item. It's like, bro, that's like straight up counterfeiting. That's not like that's not innovation. That's like ripping off like the intellectual property of the American companies right there. They're acting like they've achieved something.
And it's like they'll never sell it in a Western country because as soon as it makes it here, that company that actually got ripped off, they're going to sue and say it's a counterfeit, which is illegal. And then that company is going to get fined to hell, whichever one's copyrighting them, or banned from importing. So it's like, there's no real purpose in even doing that. I mean, like, unless you're going to Chinatown in, like, New York City, which is known for, counterfeits. I mean, that's one of the few places you'd be able to sell in the country. But no upstanding store or like an online retailer like Amazon is ever going to sell that crap. I mean, there's going to be a whole bunch of legal issues trying to.
You remember when the Top Gear trio, they went to like, I think it might have been Burma, maybe. I can't remember where it was. They went to like some bizarre, like this big market or something, and it had like all the glass, like, counters that you could see into, and they were selling like watches and everything.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, look, it's a $10 Rolex in there. Look at this, a $10 Submariner. It's a fine one there. And they were like buying all these like counterfeit watches and stuff like that, all the chest and stuff.
Man, I think I remember seeing that before, actually. Yeah. I didn't watch every episode.
The counterfeiting market's wild, like all these ripoffs and stuff out there. Like it's really wild. It's prevalent outside of America, but they try to catch the stuff before they come into the border. Like here in the United States, like they try to catch it, but it's like if it's too much, I mean they can't catch it all. So they try their best to weed out the counterfeit stuff being imported into America, but a lot of stuff still makes it past.
Because you have to remember, everybody, that every single form of illegal contraband, most of it, the large percentage of most types of contraband that make it into the United States are shipped in a international standardized shipping container. That is still the main way illegal stuff gets in the country to this day, which is really kind of crazy when you think about it, because any container ship on any ship in the world, and not even the shipping company would know it, could be filled with contraband, and they have no clue. Like that's honestly kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, it really is insane, really.
Because man, like you see those evergreen ships, like the Ever Given. Let me go pull that up. So let me show you the Ever Given. It's carrying
Ever Given trouble.
Man, honestly, blah. But man, this thing is carrying thousands of shipping containers. The Evergreen Company, for the larger part, because this is a standard across the whole industry, they don't know exactly what's in each of these containers. They just know what's on the shipping manifest for the container. So any one of those containers on any ship in the world could be carrying, millions of dollars of contraband, counterfeits, cocaine, and they don't know because as long as it's listed on the shipping manifest as, like industrial grade sand, that's what they think's in the container. They have no clue. The port authorities have no clue unless they spot inspect the lucky one that has the stuff in it. Nobody has a clue.
I'm sure they have some like checks that they probably do. They probably try to check it, probably like random check or something. I'm not really sure what their protocols are. I'm sure they probably go through some due diligence, I would imagine. But when I was really young and also really stupid, when used to see these ships right here that said Evergreen on the side of it like that, I used to think they were based out of Evergreen, Alabama. Because I
Honestly,
remember passing, I
yeah.
remember passing by that in Alabama, like going down to Mobile and to Mississippi. I'll be thinking, oh look, it's Evergreen. That's where the shipping company's based out of. I was like, I had no idea that it was a Chinese company. I had no idea.
I never knew that either. But a lot of the major shipping companies are based out of Southeast Asia or East Asia. Most of the major ones that do the global shipping these days, or they're European.
Wait, let me make a correction. They're Taiwanese. They're Taiwanese. My bad.
Man, we're about to get a letter from the ROC
Yeah.
government for that one. Like, they're
My
screw
bad.
you,
My
assholes.
bad. That was
Oh, no.
completely unintentional, by the way. I support Taiwan independence.
Dude, we're gonna have to go on the apology tour now. Like, we're gonna have to whip out that ukulele and start strumming on that thing hard. But beyond that, though, I mean, like, crazily enough, though, man, because I read a book. I would heavily recommend, Matthew, that you read that book, The Box, like that I read about shipping containers, because it covers its history all the way up until the modern day. That's the huge thing about shipping containers, is that there isn't really an easy ability to inspect them without popping them open. And popping them open is the whole reason why these things exist, is because they don't want to pop them open, because it increases handling costs, because you'd have to have some longshoremen and port authority guys who are paid, and a lot of them, to just go around and pop these things open and go looking through them. And that costs a lot of money, and that takes a lot of time, and that defeats the whole point of the shipping container. Way back in the day, they actually used to do that, back when when the shipping container craze was just starting in the 70s. They actually would pop them open because there was longshoremen union agreements and whatnot that they would have to do that to keep all of the longshoremen employed in the tens of thousands at most of these ports. But over the years, they started to get rid of those sorts of union arrangements and agreements, and so most of these aren't inspected. They'll do spot inspections on them at the port of reception, where like an 18-wheeler brings it in. They might spot inspect one out of every several hundred of them for contraband, and then when they get unloaded at another port, like here in the United States, the port authorities here might inspect one out of a couple of hundred to make sure that it's not carrying contraband. But for the larger part, most of the containers are never inspected from their point of loading to their point of unloading, wherever that may be in the world.
Yeah, it's quite crazy, honestly.
Yeah, crazy sort of a thing, really. But outside of that, I hope that is an interesting rabbit hole, folks, because shipping containers are actually deeply fascinating to be such a mundane thing. It's basically just a steel cardboard box that you ship stuff in, but it's actually wildly fascinating how that whole industry works. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $30 support from Chef Danny B once again. And thank you for the second support, Chef Danny. He said, Chef Danny, I also failed to say, I don't use gas or propane. And all my smokers and grills are wood and charcoal. So at 3 a.m., when poured lighter fluid on two smokers, I could see why they were worried.
Oh yeah, I could definitely see that. I could see that now. Wood. Some types of wood, they put off such an extreme amount of smoke when you burn them. I don't think pine was one of those types, because we burned a lot of pine back in the day when we were growing up, and I would never really remember a lot of smoke. It'd always be like this wispy stuff coming off of it, but it wouldn't be thick. But some types of wood.
Oh man.
Mm-hmm.
I remember those bonfires, man. We used to have some bonfires like crazy because, of course, we were in the backwoods, so it was a little bit different. If you want to start a fire, it wasn't just like lighter fluid. It was like get the gas jug out.
That was so dangerous.
Get the gasoline jug out, tossing gas on the fire and stuff like that. Honestly, never do that, people. Like, never do that. I mean, that's common sense, by the way. I wasn't the one that was wanting to do that, by the way. I was just involved because it wasn't really my decision. Let's just put it that way. But it was. Get all the sticks, all the scrub brush and everything from clearing some of the land, put it in a big pile bonfire, and start the thing. It would never really want to get started. So then the gasoline jug came out. Oh man, some stories out of that. I remember distinctly there was a old wooden playhouse thing that was put on this bonfire, which was made out of the most flammable wood you would ever imagine in your life. I didn't have any idea how flammable that was. Threw the gas on it, lit it up, and the next thing you heard was quick, get the hose, get the hose. It's
Like that was
the
going to
garden
do
hose
anything.
the garden hose ain't putting this thing out. This fire is like freaking going crazy. Like it's reaching like 50 feet tall. It's going crazy. It's about to burn the neighborhood down. It's about to go berserk. And at that point, there's nothing you can do like about a fire like that. Once it gets out of control, there's nothing you can do. Like never throw gas on a fire. Bad idea.
It was a terrible idea, and I just saw someone say it was the enforcer's fault. No, it was neither of ours. I remember thinking that that stuff was wildly unsafe when it was going on. And also what was stupid about it is that the person who was doing that, they would take the gas canister, remember this, Matthew? And they would only put it like 6 to 10 feet away from the fire. It was never that far away from like this raging inferno. And so at any point, an ember could just land near it and set the whole gas can on fire that's filled with like 3 gallons of gas.
Well, yeah. And also, it was tossing gas on the fire as it was already burning crazy, like adding more gas to it. Also, by the way, if y'all didn't know this, which I'm sure most people will, as it's common sense, if you throw the gas, there's obviously a trail of gas going back to the gas jug that you're slinging onto the fire. So that fire can travel right back up the gas stream, right back into the gas jug, and blow the thing to smithereens that you're holding. So that's why you don't typically do that.
Yeah, honestly, man, like the fire safety on that whole side of things was just utterly brainless. I gotta say, folks, looking back at that, I'm survived that nobody was severely burned in any of those instances doing that. Because there are so many, like when you're a kid, you don't really realize how unsafe that is. But having grown up now and also been around a lot of people who deal with fire, because they're firefighters or firemen or whatever you like to call them. You hear about all the stories about how fires can go out of control and stupid things can be done like that, and how badly that can go, with like 3rd-degree burns over like 80% of your body and whatnot, to where you're basically just, you're crippled for life after that. And looking back at that, it's like that was so stupid to do that, and then also have us as young kids basically doing it as well, like being involved in that. That was just insane. But outside of that, I would have to say, I remember those fires vividly, and I remember that one vividly as well, because I remember that everybody retreated to the house at some point, and that thing, the fire was so tall, you remember it, Matty, it was literally reaching to the top of the longleaf pines at one point, like all the way from the ground up there.
I mean, that's how I know, like when we watch these Russian fires and stuff, I'm like, oh, I know they can feel that from a mile away, because I know how fire feels because of that experience, like, being within 50 feet of it. When a fire gets big enough, you can feel that heat from a distance that you wouldn't even believe once a fire gets big enough. Like, most people don't understand that until they've been close to a huge fire like that. That fire can really reach some distance when it gets big.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I remember after that fire died down, all of the trees surrounding that little burn area were dead. Like after that, from the heat. You remember that too? Like how all of them wilted and died in like the following
They caught one of
weeks?
them on fire.
I think it did on like the lower end, and then that person's out there with a garden hose spraying that down. Like a garden hose is going to put out a fire that's like 80 foot tall and about 30 feet wide at the base. Like that, like a garden hose would ever be able to fight that. And oh man, honestly thinking back about these stories, they're getting me kind of aggravated, because I'm thinking back about it and putting like a kid that was our age in that sort of a position, and that was ridiculous. I think at one point, man, that you were told to like start spraying down the tree, while the person who told you that went back and just basically retreated from the whole area. If I remember right. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't recall. It's just a lot of stupidity.
Yeah, it was a good amount. But beyond that, I would have to say, some woods are definitely smoky, like very smoky for sure. And so I definitely would get why they might call 911 if they didn't really know what was up and they just saw that at 3 a.m. That probably is pretty crazy, honestly. But a huge thanks to your support and help with this channel to keep it running. And I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
Our next one's going to go to Duncan VR. And thank you very much, Duncan, for that $28 support. And we do appreciate that. He said, Bamu with quack. Cards. I got the card. Cards. I have the cards. I got to select the right one, the right impression. I had no sleep in 3 days. Sir, he's got the cards. I have a big ballroom. Like those pants that the loot trading company sell. Ballroom. I better send Zelensky Big Mac and fries. Bah.
I gotta tell you, you're absolutely right. We send them fries and Big Macs, and as we all know, Zelensky is the master of war. He's truly the greatest, because we're trying to get something from him now, so the whole story has changed. He's now one of the greatest guys alive. And I also have to reference Sun Tzu, The Art of War, Chapter 13, The Use of Spies, Sentence 10, having N-word spies, making use of officials of the enemy. That's so deep. That's so deep. This guy was a genius. And Rule 6, knowledge of the enemy's dispositions can only be obtained from other men. Well, this guy clearly didn't know about satellite photography back then, because you can find a lot about that from satellites way up in space. They take these wonderful things called photographs, and they picture wide areas. You can really see what's going on down there. And I gotta say, a humongous thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Duncan, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. So that way we can talk about getting some ballroom, but not in the White House, but in our jeans. Have any of y'all noticed how these wicked Chinese communists are trying to just make our men infertile by how tight it is down there? We need more ballroom. That's what I'm trying to say, everybody. You need to get pants with better cuts down there, because they're really hurting these days. But a big thanks to your support and helping this channel to keep it running. And I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a $20 support from That Mom, and thank you, That Mom, for that support. They said, Mom's weekly 15-minute recipe. I'm sick today, so I made leek soup. 1 stick butter, 4 seed broth, 6 green onions, 3 leeks, 3 potatoes. Mashed milk is optional. Soy sauce, throw in a pot, set to low. Enjoy food for 4 and 6 hours. That's a lot of work, 6 hours right there.
That actually sounds really good, though. Like leek soup. Let me ask you, does it leak? Big thanks to your support.
Man,
I gotta say, man, you gotta try hard. Like, you gotta try hard. Man, he went, oh,
man! If only I had like 1 billion, I could really make that laugh work. Hey!
I didn't do that. The hell, you did that to yourself. Like, bro, like, hey. It's like, bro, I'm doing nothing over here. I'm just waiting for you to get done. Like,
I'm framing you.
Oh, man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. He flames himself and he blames it on me, live on air. Oh, man, I'm telling you. But a big thanks to you for the support, That Mom. And that is a very good sounding recipe, actually. So a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And I'll have to see about trying to make that someday. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Our next one goes to Jocelyn White. And thank you very much, Josh, for that $20 support, and we do appreciate that very much. And Josh said, for coffee, since you don't have P.O. Box yet, and thank you. And also, thank you, Josh, for that. Also, I want to ask you a question, since you would know. Can you confirm that the coffee prices have gone up? Because you would know that, of all people. You would know that yourself. Can you tell us that? Like, if you have a number of how much it's generally gone up on average, I would be curious to know, because it looks like the coffee's gone up. I know I'm not going crazy. I know I can't be losing it this quick, so I got to know. But Enforcer, what say you?
The price of coffee, Matthew, is rising. It's just a fact. I went and, you know something, folks? I went and filled up my car with gas today. This isn't coffee, but it's kind of related. Matthew, play price roulette. How much did you think it cost for 16 gallons of gas today?
75.
$80.
I was close enough. It was
pretty close. Yeah, it was only $5 off. I mean, you know, that's very close. But $80. So I mean, coffee definitely has to be risen in price. I mean, if the price of fuel is that high, coffee has to have risen a good bit. Well, I would pull it up, but sadly, folks, I buy coffee so sporadically because I buy like these big bags of like Starbucks Pike Roast, and it lasts for like months. So I don't really memorize the price off of the top of my head. But I think the last time I looked at it, it's way up there at this point compared to what it last was. Like in my mind, like I looked at it, I was like, that's definitely a lot more than what it was before. But you know, I heard, folks, that the economy has never been doing better. I actually heard, folks, that the economy is doing so well that the Speaker of the House said that insider trading has to be done, so that way there can be some money made.
No. He didn't say that.
I'm of course kidding around, folks. I'm kidding.
Yeah, well, let's not say stuff like that.
Well, I mean, it's just a joke. But beyond that, though, I've been hearing that the cost of things have been rising so much in this country that it really is almost unavoidable to be able to admit that at this point. But I hope that does address that well. And a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, by the way, Josh said probably like 20% green cost. I'm guessing, because I'm not in the coffee industry, but I'm guessing that's meaning buying the beans just like straight up from the source, I'm guessing, and then you roast them, because when you roast them, they turn into coffee beans like the normal color. Before you roast them, I would assume they're green. So I think that's what she means. So 20%. So that's actually a pretty big increase right there.
Oh, man, that is a huge increase, actually. But with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 50 from Slow Sparks, and thank you very much, Slow Sparks, for that very generous $50 support. We do appreciate that very much.
Hey!
They threw in a super sticker of the YouTube creature, throwing that ass around the city and just destroying the whole block. But thank you for the support. And Enforcer, what say you?
Man, they throwing it back. And I gotta say, huge thanks to you for support, Slow Sparks, and helping this channel to keep it running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so humongous thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, by the way, for the people, saying, let him crack a joke, geez, we can't say stuff like that, because if somebody doesn't understand it's a joke, that turns into defamation. That's why we can't say stuff like that, and that's why I said what I said, by the way. We have to be very careful about stuff like that, because, people that are political now don't like what we're saying, because, of course, sometimes we're saying things that don't generally align with what the people who are necessarily in power like. So we got to be very careful and dot our I's and, cross our T's, to say the least. But our next one here goes to C146W, who puts in a 20, and thank you very much for the support as well. They said 93 gas, still only $5 in southwestern Connecticut, and it's my Friday night and have some money.
Oh, and thank you so much for the support, C136. And I do have to say, southwestern Connecticut has always been known to have a very harsh gas market. I actually wouldn't know. I've never been up to New England, sadly. I would like to go one day, though, because there's a lot of cool stuff up in New England. It's basically the heart of this country historically, so I'd like to take a visit up there myself one day. And crack a couple of jokes, live in a free country, hopefully, not where it's run by the Stasi or something. But beyond that, though, I do have to say a huge thanks to you for support, and thank you for the money. It helps just to get gas, and gas is certainly not cheap these days. 80, folks, there was a time when it would cost me to fill up my tank. Roughly, it was like $45 to $50, and now it's 80. So that is an increase of about 60% or so in cost for gas, which is not good at all. And it's very tough to know that a lot of people, everyone in the country basically at this point, is having to deal with that, because a lot of people, folks, don't even have $1,000 in savings. Like, most of the country doesn't even have that much money in savings. So for people who are always saying, oh, it's not that big of a deal and people can get by, most people in the country are living on razor-thin margins. 1 month they might be able to afford stuff, and then if the prices rise for everything, they're not able to pay for utilities and rent the next. So that's why these sorts of massive price influxes across the board are certainly not good for most people in this country. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
It's crazy too. Like, even the cost of beef has gone up. Like, you can't even fight with people anymore. It costs too much money. That's why nobody's beefing with us anymore, because it costs too much.
Man, that's why I heard the hot dog man had to waltz off to somewhere else. I could stop doing YouTube. He just couldn't afford the beef anymore.
Man, he couldn't afford it, nor could he chew it. Neither one. But our next one here goes to
chew it.
chew it.
Those romps in the woods. It's like, he was out there finding meat somewhere. It wasn't beef. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
So, well, I won't say that, but our next one here goes to Base Soda, who puts in a $20 support. And thank you, Base Soda, for that $20 support. They said, pants sear, more like I sear my pants after a night out at Taco Bell. Ugh. I mean, fair enough.
That reads like a Dracula flow line, man. Like, that Smith and Wesson got me moving like an invasive species. He's got pants here. More like, I sear my pants after a night out at Taco. Bro, that's literally a Dracula flow line, I swear. Like, that has the exact same cadence as a Dracula flow line.
I'm getting so much money. They got to tell me to stop. This Smith & Wesson got me moving like an invasive species. Let's see. I can't remember though. I don't even know. Like, I saw that guy today on the reels when I was like flicking through the reels and stuff like that. I saw him in there and I heard all of them, and it totally went out the other ear. Like, I couldn't retain it.
Man, man. Wait, hold on. I'm trying to find a couple of them here. I was flipping bricks for Mansa Musa before y'all even became a Type 1 civilization. Man, oh man, I'm not gonna lie, man. Bro, the lines were hard, man, and he did it with like sheer passion, man. Like I gotta say, Dracula Flow was the best at dropping those lines. I think there's 4 or 5 videos of Dracula Flow. And some people have tried to imitate it, but they just can't get the same spirit that he had. He had it, like, it was great. But a big thanks to your support. I gotta say, if that was supposed to be like a new Dracula Flow line, that went hard. That was a pretty good one. But with that, a huge thanks to you so much. Wait, hang on, man. Like, here was one of the Dracula Flow lines. They said you need to change. Well, I had to change. I shit my pants or something like that. Like, that was one of them. I was like, man, these are absolutely ridiculous, but the delivery is so good.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, like somebody's grandpa was wilding out,
Man, Gramps was going off for real.
or Unc.
Man, Unc was going off. But with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to none other than OK State 42. And thank you, OK State, for that support. He said, "Hey, brother enforcers. Thanks for providing entertaining and fact-based war news. I seen a report today about 2 Iranian fighter jets attacking U.S. ships near Hormuz, allegedly shot down by the USA. Any truth to this?" Now, I want to say this about real quick before Enforcer answers that question real quick, OK State. I want to say this. There is a channel out there who is covering the Iran war situation. Not going to name them because we don't have any interest in starting beef, but just as a general statement out there, if the news seems too good to be true, like where it seems like every single day the U.S. is somehow smacking the Iranians down, like it's only going good for the United States, that you got to question that person a little bit, because the U.S. has done good on some aspects, but on other ones, they've dropped the ball big time, especially with the Strait of Hormuz. So I've seen a channel out there that seems to only paint it a certain way, where everything's going good. The U.S. is smacking the mosquito boats out of the water every day, even though that hasn't happened in, over a week or two. So I'm always cautious about that kind of stuff. That whole thing right there is not really telling people the whole story. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I haven't heard about that myself. We didn't get any reports over the day today that happened, and also that would generally be a violation of the ceasefire, and we would definitely have something to report on if that happened, and we didn't see it, because from what I can tell, it didn't happen. I would have to say, though, as kind of like a cautionary statement for a lot of people right now who are on YouTube, a lot of people assume that because it's a YouTube channel, kind of like us, that it's always going to be trying to go for the maximum of factuality. So it's going to be trying to paint the situation for what it is. If it's bad, it's bad. If it's good, it's good. Case to case. Some channels out there, though, for some reason, they're not attached to anything larger, but they subscribe themselves to a personal belief that either they hate something or they love something, so basically a political bias, and then everything is reported through that bias. So, like, for example, like in the current environment right now, if they lean towards the left, everything's going to be negative right now because someone from the left isn't in charge. If they're from the right, everything's never been better and it's getting better every day, no matter what. The world could literally be destroyed in a nuclear hellfire, and they'll tell you that it's a great thing because we need to cleanse the planet. Like, that sort of a deal. And there are a lot of channels out there that are in the war category that do that. Like here on our channel, we try and report things positively and give the benefit of the doubt until so much time passes and so many bad decisions have been made that you just can't do that anymore. And you can literally watch that over the course of the past year and 5 months. That when this all started with the new administration, we were giving humongous benefit of the doubt because there was no reason to doubt anything yet. And now a year and 5 months later, generally our outlook and analysis is going to be fairly negative because we have a running track record at this point that's so bad. There's no reason to assume that good decisions will be made when the wrong decisions are made all the time. But on other channels, though, it literally just depends on who's in charge politically, and their analysis and news isn't even analysis and news. It's basically just made up to make the situation sound good if they like the person who's in charge, or to make it sound bad if they don't like the person who's in charge. So make sure to be very careful about the kind of sources you are listening to out there, because a lot of them are fibbing a lot of information for good and for bad.
Yeah, also, by the way, the U.S. hasn't attacked Iran, just for context. The U.S. has not attacked Iran, like with aircraft, for how many weeks has it been so far, would you say?
A month and a half almost at this point.
Yeah, something like that. They haven't attacked for a while. So if you see a YouTube channel out there putting out video day after day talking about the F-35s just whack the Iranians and you can't believe it, that's usually a big red flag, like right there, because they haven't struck anything in quite some time. So I'm all for, like, celebrating U.S. victories when we have them. Like, I am 100% for that, because when there's something to celebrate, we'd love to celebrate as Americans. But to start making stuff up just to make it sound like it's going good, just to paint the situation as positive when it's not, it's like, okay, now it's starting to delve into, now you're basically being a U.S. propagandist at that point. You're trying to pull the wool over people's eyes instead of giving them the actual news, which is not the way we operate. We get flack for telling people the truth because, sometimes it's not favorable to the United States, but we'd rather do that than just, pull the wool over people's eyes and pretend like everything's fine.
Yeah, and also a couple of just a few more things on this. With the situation around the world, I mean, there has to be proof for something somewhere, and a lot of these people usually don't have proof because, like, for example, some people say that we're overly positive on Ukraine, but there's been times that we've criticized the Ukrainians on this channel a decent bit. Like, for example, when the Russian Volunteer Corps started bombarding Belgrade, just with no discretion, well, with an endless amount of no discretion, and we're basically bombarding civilians and killing them in Belgrade. We said that's very questionable. That doesn't look good. It's making the Ukrainians look like war criminals. That needs to end. And such things like that. But then there's other channels out there on the same coin, generally ones that we do not associate with at all. The channels we associate with and ever list off publicly, I'll name on the channel, they're in good standing, they're very factual, and work very hard on making sure that they have good quality coverage. But, like, for example, back in the day, those YouTube channels that were coming out with the stories of the Ukrainian Special Forces have hijacked a train, and it had a RBMK reactor on it, 5 Su-57s, a couple of T-14 Armadas, and they just drove the train across the border into Ukraine. And there was no proof for that. There was no information on that. It was just a complete lie. And they just ran with it, and then people would believe that because it was from another YouTube channel, and they made it sound convincing. And that sort of thing is happening in the war in Iran right now, where nothing is happening right now day to day, and people are just fabricating stories. If you ever want to know, did that engagement happen, just go onto Twitter and check CENTCOM's Twitter. If an engagement happened of any sort, they have made a report on it to some extent. Like, that is a guarantee. Like, even if aircraft were shot down and they didn't want to admit that, CENTCOM would still make a report that U.S. naval forces were engaged and there was a small skirmish and they destroyed whatever present threats there were, and they might not get into any further detail than that, but that's a great way to be able to corroborate through at least some official government statement that something happened at a minimum that might make that story more plausible. But I do hope that addresses that well, and a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. But generally, I'd have to say that we didn't hear about that today, and if we did, that would have been the headliner news. So a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep them running, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
And our next one here is going to go to none other than LD Rizzo. And thank you very much, LD Rizzo, for that $20 support. It said, at Enforcer Matt, currently in Little America, Wyoming, and about to be driving through you guys' neck of the woods on my way home to Seattle from Texas and LSA. And also, where is that, by the way? Little America, Wyoming, where's that?
Little America. I've heard of it before, but I can't find it on the map. Little America, Wyoming. Oh, did we drive through? We drove through there, actually.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, we drove because it's right past Green River.
Oh, okay, yeah. I guess we did drive through there. Excuse me.
I tell you what a small place. It's basically not existent. Like, that's crazy. That's so weird. I don't really remember this town. I think it was because it was so small. It's literally just a Little America fuel center. That's why it's called Little America. It's because of the fuel center.
Oh, I see now.
That all makes sense now. That all makes sense. Now I think I remember. I was about to say, dude, is that our U-Haul? But we had a Penske. Let's see. Yeah, I don't remember this place. I don't even remember passing this place, honestly, folks. Because I think we stopped at some truck stop way back here near, like, it was like, let's see, Sunico or something like that, or whatever that place. Oh, it was Sinclair. That's what it was. I think we stopped all the way back there and then just stopped for the night in like Rock Springs or Green River or something, and then we drove all the way into Salt Lake City the next day without stopping. And I think that was so early in the morning I wouldn't have remembered it if I passed it because I was exhausted by that point. But beyond that though, I hope that you enjoy your drive into Utah. The drive on Interstate 80 through that area is gorgeous. It's a really nice place, and a humongous thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to make it a reality. And so a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have 3 super chats from none other than GunFox61. And thank you very much, GunFox, for those 3 days in history. And also, we will not forget to get a question from the chat. We will have to remember. And he said here, he said, 1/13/1993, STS-54, the primary payload was the 5th TDRS satellite, TDRS-F, which was deployed on day 1 of the mission. It was later successfully transferred to its proper orbit by inertial upper stage, IUS. And question from the chat.
And I gotta say, a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I also gotta say that that is quite an interesting thing right there. STS-54. And you know, I don't know a lot about every single STS mission, but that is really cool to hear. This one was apparently conducted by the Space Shuttle Endeavour and was launched in 1993, with the Endeavour returning back only a week later, well, 6 days later in 1993. Really cool, honestly. Oh, look at that picture. That's a really neat one. Really neat, honestly. And also, that was a really cool patch. Really cool all around. And so
It feels to be out in space like that.
I wonder. I wonder. I'm curious about that one. You know, I wonder what it feels like. It must feel.
I've
out of
heard
this
that you
world.
can actually. I've heard you can actually hear stuff out there, even though they say you can't. You can still hear it.
Hal, get back in the shuttle. That's not a human. Like, get back in the shuttle.
Man, have you seen those? Have you seen those alleged documents talking about like these reports of like alien encounters and stuff like that? Like these documents that came out talking about they were 3 to 4 feet and they looked kind of a little bit squeamish. It's like what? It's like, I mean, what are we talking about here? Are we being serious? It's like, come on. It's like if they're real, let's see them. Let's have a press conference. What are we waiting for?
Everything about these alien sightings is just raw BS. I'll be honest with y'all, folks. Like, after seeing how this whole thing's been handled recently with, oh, look, we're putting out the UFO files. I think the whole UFO thing and the alien deal is a distraction. Like, from the get-go. Because if they existed, why in the world would the aliens be so scared of meeting us? It's not like the U.S. government would be able to stop them. If they're that advanced to make it here, they could do whatever they wanted to. And so if they wanted the world to know that they existed, they just could. There's nothing that would stop them from doing that. I think this whole thing, to be honest with y'all folks, is just something to keep the public distracted. Kind of like, you know, all the other goofy stuff as well that goes on recently, like, you know, oh my god, you know, did Kim Kardashian get another BBL? It's like, why in the world are people paying attention to this? It was this whole thing that I saw. It was like a tabloid thing when I got on the Twitter feed for our account. It was really like an ad thing for like a tabloid. And it was like, did Kim Kardashian get more plastic surgery? It's like, it had like millions of views. And I was like, why in the world are people focusing on this kind of stuff? It's like, who cares? It's like, who really cares? There's a whole bunch of other things going on in the world that are way more pressing than that. And for some
like
reason,
those other files.
yeah, like those, like, you know, like those, yeah. But you know, it is what it is, I guess, you know. And also on top of that, you know, a lot of people will, you know, get distracted by it and go down that rabbit hole. Kind of like similarly, not to have too hot of a take here, but kind of how people get really obsessed with sports and sports teams, to the point that that takes priority over everything. Like the country could fall apart, and some people will be like, well, as long as Alabama fights Auburn at the Iron Bowl, then that's all that matters to me. And it's like, but we're broke. It's like, why don't we focus on that for a minute? You know, it's kind of the bread and circus thing that they figured out thousands of years ago.
They say that there's a underwater little laboratory at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico, but now the aliens call it America because they abide by U.S. law. But they built it at the bottom of that, and apparently they 3D print and build a brand new surveillance craft every time they send it up to go and, you know, spy on U.S. bases. It doesn't have the flag of the CCP on it or anything like that. It's just an alien one that comes out from outer space and stuff like that. That's what they say. They 3D print them to a custom order.
You know, honestly, I wouldn't doubt that. Maybe they do have something like that. Like precision scheduled production or something along those lines. Maybe, who knows? But I would still say I just don't really know about the whole alien thing. Honestly, most of the stuff that's abstract, I think it's just mostly distraction kind of stuff at this point. Because I just don't get it. I just don't get it. But still, a big thanks to you for support, Gunfox, in sharing with us the story of STS-54. And with that, we're on to the next one from Gunfox.
And Gunfox's second one, it says STS-56, April 8, 1993, Space Shuttle Discovery. The primary payload of the flight was the Atmosphere Laboratory for Applications in Science, the Atlas II, designed to collect data on the relationship between the sun's energies.
And look at that. You can actually see that lab right there. That's something else right there. And I gotta say,
wasn't there a time when they wouldn't open up the bay doors on a space shuttle with the camera rolling because there was like something in it?
Yeah, it was like sensitive military payloads and stuff. They didn't want anyone, like the Chinese or the Russians to know what was in it. So they had to turn the cameras off before they even, showed. Well, I think they had the cameras off that whole mission because this camera would have looked straight into the payload bay even when it was closed. So I think that's how that worked back then for a couple of the missions. Because we had no other delivery method, I believe, except for this one and a few others at the time. So some of it had to be brought up on the shuttle. But outside of that, a very interesting sort of an STS mission, Gunfox. And with that, we're going to move on to the last one. And then we're going to get a live chat, because we're not forgetting that this time. So, Matthew, what do we got?
So this one goes to Gunfox once again. He said 1204 Baldwin IX. I can't read Roman numerals, folks. I'm
the ninth.
That's the ninth. That's that boy Baldwin. He said he was the Count of Flanders. He's crowned as the first emperor of the Latin Empire of Constantinople. 1568 defeated the Battle of Langside. Mary Queen of Scots flees to England. 1771 Battle of Alamance.
I gotta say, this Baldwin the Ninth guy, he's a pretty important guy. A lot of y'all might know him from, I believe, that one. I'm trying to think of him. It's that one movie where he had like the leopard mask on. I believe at one point he was a leopard. I'm not sure.
At one point in my life, I fought a very important battle.
And now I won't live to see the age of 30.
That's tough.
Man, that's some tough shit. It's like, well, looks like we're all going to get slaughtered. But beyond that, though, really interesting guy. I also have to say that let's see here, the Battle of Langside. I've heard of that one before. And then 1771, the Battle of Alamance. The Battle of Alamance. That rings a bell to me. I don't know from where. But I do thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running, and we wouldn't be able to make it possible. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have here a $20 support from... Whoa. We almost forgot Gunfox.
Live chat.
Live chat. I caught it. Thank you very much, Gunfox, for all that support. It's time to get that live chat question. And see, I caught it. I held up my end of the bargain. This one goes to Mr. Light Rail. He said, how much is a Pantsir missile versus a Ukrainian drone as far as cost?
Pantsir missile cost. I don't know that one off the top of my head, so let me see if I can find that. Let's see. So the missiles cost anywhere in between $50,000 to $150,000 per round. A Ukrainian drone usually costs somewhere within the ballpark of less than $10,000, depending on its batch. So significantly cheaper than the missile they're using to try and shoot it down. So a humongous thanks to you for sponsoring a live chat, Gunfox. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And a humongous thanks to you so much once again for support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
I know this is off topic, but I gotta let you see this right here. I just reposted it right now. Take a look at this Economist painting real quick. I gotta let you see this thing.
Hold up. Is it reposted on the main page?
Show it to the people.
What the hell is that?
Show it to the people, bro. Look at the headline. It says, could you survive 72 hours without outside food, water, or electricity? And they show a picture of the forest and some mountains. And what's the first thing they show is a bear with red eyes ready to kill somebody. It's like the bears are not like that. It's like man, they're feeding into those stereotypes bad. Also, that looks like a freaking Sasquatch. It doesn't even look like a bear.
Why does this bear look like extremely disgruntled? Like it's kind of confused. Yeah, really. Why it's angry. Like why does it look like that?
It's like these bears aren't looking to kill people. It's like, they're mostly like like black bears are kind of skittish. The brown bears, they're a little more troublesome. But I mean, they're not like demon bears, like they're looking for you or something. Man, this tells you the economist people don't ever get outside. They're painting bears like demons.
They ain't touching grass.
They ain't never touched grass. Like that is not the way those bears are looking.
Let's see. Hold up. I want to see here. How did...
Yeah, they must say that's the cocaine bear. I didn't know that made your eyes turn red.
So apparently this is what they're talking about is a 32-page brochure that was mailed by the authorities to the country's 5 million households in Sweden, telling them how to prepare in case of crisis or war. So basically their whole article is talking about the preparations for war. But
Or they even have bears like that to worry about?
what, in Sweden?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, they do. It's Sweden. Most of the place is uninhabited.
Yeah, I mean, what kind of bears do they have? Like, real quick.
They have those Swedish bears. Like they have those
Was that the
Swedish
type that makes
type.
meatballs? What's a Swedish bear?
Man, they got them extra scary type. They got them damn Eurasian brown bears, man. These are the ones that you really think of when you think of getting mauled to death.
Oh. Okay, I didn't know they had these, but yeah, those are, maybe that is the bear with red eyes, possibly.
Oh, hello, I'm going to kill you now. He's like, oh, it's a man. Like, that thing is scary as hell. These are scarier even than those Alaskan brown bears. The Alaskan brown bears kind of look goofy. This thing actually looks like an apex predator.
Honestly, it kind of looks all right, though. Like, it kind of looks all right.
Man, that thing's looking at you, man, in that picture like he's going to have a 4-course meal. Like, ain't looking all right.
A big meatball. I have to hold out my lip like this because I'm so hungry. I could eat a whole human. Oh, there's one.
Like, a man's like, I would never get near one of those.
Man, these bears love meatballs and they shop at IKEA.
Man, these bears, they live simple lives. They take bath, they wander wood, scream into oblivion, eat people. Man, like they're very simple creatures. Man, I never want to find one of those. This one looks stupid though.
It's stupid, but he knows one thing: how to eat.
Man, hey, I might be stupid, but I'm eating. Like, man, so I don't know about you. Man, like,
Are you the Uber Eats driver? Does that bag say order for me?
like you have to
Order for Bear? I'll take it.
Man, these things are huffing some jet fuel real hard, like out in Siberia. Like, these things are going to town out there.
Man, I tell you what, I tell you.
But anyways, it is time for us to keep rolling. We have to keep moving, folks. There's a fictitious timer we put on the show to keep it at a certain length, so we have to keep it rolling. So with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from DJW, who put in a 20. And also, thank you very much, DJW, for that support. He said, a hat tip to the commendable effort announcing your Super Chats live on the daily. It's awesome, given your audience size. And I'm in Australia, and LSA is my new favorite daily hangout. And 12 p.m. start, so we won't be telling my boss. And also, we're glad to have you, by the way. We're glad to have you here, by the way. And also, thank you very much for supporting the channel as well to help keep it running. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you so much for the support and enjoying our channel and being here every day at 12 p.m. Australian time. I also gotta say, you wouldn't believe it, but some people don't really appreciate that we literally call out every single super chat. But I don't really, like, to be honest though, like, kind of the truth of that is that that's a very small group of people, and also those people don't super chat. And so it's like, you know, what is their opinion? Is like, you know, they wouldn't even have a show to be on to bitch about, like us reading off super chats, if we didn't have super chats to keep the show running. So I don't really even get what those people complain about, because I still hold the belief well on in. I don't really care how large the channel ever gets, and I don't care if we have hundreds of super chats, and we have had that some nights. We are going to call off every single one of them, because people don't have to support the channel. And some people on YouTube act like it's a given, and they act like they're owed the money, and so they don't have to read them off and thank the folks who are supporting the channel. But I know what it's like to make $1. It takes a long time. You know, like, I worked jobs where it was hardly above minimum wage. So, you know, throwing in like $7 to a channel is a huge deal. That could be an hour's worth of work for someone to throw in a super chat like that. And so I greatly appreciate everybody who throws in super chats, and that's why we go out of our way to make sure to read off every single one of them, because I greatly appreciate people who go over their way to support our channel to help this whole thing be possible and keep running. So a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. I hope that us address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Based Soda, and thank you, Based Soda, for that $20 support as well. He said, Dookie.
And I gotta thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And that guy, that Dookie guy. And a huge thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 15 from Siri, and thank you, Siri, as well, for that $15 support. They said, Norway's Independence Day, world's second oldest constitution still in use, and thank you, Enforcer Bros and folks on the front lines. The horrors persist, but so do we, and Slava Ukraine and EXO from Oslo.
And a big EXO to Oslo. And I gotta say, a big thanks to you for support. And a happy Independence Constitution Day, actually, to the Norwegians. A really cool group of folks. And I gotta say, a humongous thanks to you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And I gotta say, that's an amazing and wonderful thing to know, that folks like you help this channel to keep it running and keep it rolling every single day. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 14 from Bioloom Eater, and thank you, Bioloom, for that 14. They said Sevastopol cannot catch a break. It already exploded in 06 June 1942 when the Schwerer Gustav barraged an underwater ammunition dump. The gun was 107 feet long, caliber 31-inch, and rounds flew 10 miles.
I gotta say, I do know that gun, actually. The Gustav gun. Let me go pull that up here really quick. It was this thing right here. This is a model of it. But here's an actual picture of it. Well, actually, that's a smaller one. This is the picture. Oh, like, there it is. This one's been colorized, though. That's actually the mustache man right there. And they actually used this thing to siege the city of Sevastopol in Crimea. Problem with it is, though, is that it was absolutely ludicrous and a humongous waste of resource to be able to construct this thing and then field it. So, while it was an interesting concept, like most things made by Nazi Germany, it was pretty much unusable in reality. But a big thanks to you for your support and helping this channel to keep running, and I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have an 11 from Jack Ray, and thank you, Jack, for that $11 support. He said most airliners have oxygen masks that drop down in an emergency, and Russian airliners have vodka bottles that drop down in the case of an emergency. Honestly, that wouldn't be bad. That wouldn't be bad, honestly. I mean, between an oxygen mask and a vodka, depending on how bad the accident is, I might rather have the vodka at that point. But Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta thank you so much for the support, Jack, and I gotta say that probably is true. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Sadadaho Soda, who said, from Moscow with love.
And I support, well, more so to Moscow. He's the Ukrainians. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from SWAT, and thank you, SWAT, as well, for that support. And they said, thanks from the UK. And why do you think only the USA and the Gulf states dealing with the Straits of Hormuz and Iran, and UK seem to be sitting this one out? And they made a statement here, it's a little bit political, but that's what they say.
I would have to say that generally no one else is dealing with it because the U.S. has kind of ruffled everyone else's feathers in the West, and so they're not really that apt to want to help because it's not really their problem, and they don't really have to deal with it because it's our war. We took it on with the understanding we were going to be dealing with it on our own, and so we kind of took up all of the risk and all of the reward to follow entirely on our own as well. So that's generally why no one else is joining in at the moment. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Con45, who said, this is the most tired I think I've ever seen Zelensky. He did look tired. He looked bushed, like he looked exhausted. Who knows what Zelensky's been doing over the last few days. Like he could have been hiding in the bunker like I was talking about earlier because they've gotten that intelligence that maybe Russia might strike the decision-making centers. That could be why he's tired, but he looked pretty rough, I will say.
I would definitely agree. But a huge thanks to your support, Con. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Ulfhednar, who said, with all that oily rain, Ukraine be giving Putin that Diddy treatment.
I guess so. Maybe so. You know, like I hear that the Russians are quite fond of that oil stuff these days. But the big thing is to your support and help this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from AK DJ, who said, here's my gallon of gas contribution from Fairbanks, Alaska. And now, how much is gas in Alaska, by the way? Since it's way up there off on its own, I wonder how much gas is in Alaska on average.
Let's see here. Let me see if I can go get that. It is, on average, $5.27 in Alaska. So pretty expensive.
For normal unleaded?
Yeah, that's according to the AAA fuel price index.
That's actually not much more than I thought. I thought it was going to be more than that, actually. You know, around here, it's like 450 or 460 or something for regular, like normal gas. So that's actually not as bad as I thought.
Yeah, it's 460 actually here in Utah as a state average. We're kind of lucky though, because everyone surrounding us has higher prices. Like Nevada is $5.23, Arizona's 482, Idaho's 463. Basically, everybody around us has higher prices. Utah's kind of a little lucky for now, at least. That's because we got all them big, juicy refineries north of the city of Salt Lake. But a big thanks to you once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from SFPG, who said, what do you guys think the outcome will be from the USA if Russia attacks NATO, LSA, and bring back the voluminous swarm?
The voluminous swarm? I don't know what that is. Like,
What is that?
The heat wave? I don't know, but I would say, let's see. I would say at the moment I wouldn't really know, but I have a feeling that the U.S. is going to try and wiggle its way out of responding to anything if Russia does attack NATO. But a big thanks to your support and help this channel to keep it running, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Ulf Hednar yet again, who said, would dropping flyers from drones with money rewards for certain Russian individuals incite or incentivize the Russian public against Putin?
We've seen that such things have been done before, and well, generally against the military, but it hasn't really changed the outlook of things in the Russian military. So I'd have a feeling that it probably wouldn't change that much in the Russian public either, because they'd be scared of reprisals from the FSB and whatnot. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And big thanks to you for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from David Ford, and thank you, David, for that support. I'm not sure what that means right there. I'm not real sure what that means, so I'm going to have to refrain. But, Enforcer, what say you?
Yeah, I'd have to say I think we're going to have to refrain from that one, but I do thank you massively for the support. And with that, it is time for us to move on into our Morse code decoders. And unfortunately, folks, due to time constraints, we're not majorly over time, so we are going to get 5 of them. But due to time constraints, we'll only be able to get 5 live chats, and then we're going to be rounding out the stream for the night. So what do we got?
And moving into our Morse code decoders of the night, we had the entire roster. We had Paul, Kevin, Mason, Joni, Norm, Arabelle, Her Royal Fluffness, Kush, Koteric, Siren, Brian. They said the Morse code says, Putin be Crimea River, because Sevastopol just got shit on, so call it crying and shitting. LLT, LSA.
And that is the sound of money. Y'all got that done on the nail. That is the Morse code message of the night. Y'all have gotten that correct for about 1,480 days at this point. And I got to say that that's pretty crazy. You're still getting that dead on the nail time and time again. 1,544 days in the future. And so a humongous congrats to y'all once again. And with that, we're on to the 5th to last question of the night.
And this question is going to go to Investment Joy, who said, how many drones approximately did Ukraine launch today, if there is an estimate?
From what we've heard, it was upwards of 120, because the Russians are claiming they shot down 114. So we're assuming that it was probably around that number or a little bit higher. Across the whole of Russia, definitely higher, probably in the hundreds. But around the Moscow area, probably a little bit over 100, I would assume. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we're on to the 4th to last question of the night.
We also have one from Erling Gruel, who said, do you see any hope for us after the China situation happened this week with Taiwan?
In terms of foreign policy, not really, because every single bad foreign policy decision that can be made is being made actively on all fronts at this point. Or the right decision was made, like going to war with Iran, and then it was bumfuzzled or bungled so badly that it may as well have been that we did nothing and we ended up getting ourselves strategically screwed over in some other means. So I would say at the moment, in terms of foreign policy, I don't really have a lot of optimism because so far I haven't seen any sort of redeeming action that is in America's interest to turn the situation around and at least say at this point that it's neutral and it could go either way. It could be good or bad. Basically, every bad decision is being made that we could see at this point. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the 3rd to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Eric Ashley, who said, hello on this fine evening. And question for Enforcer Matt, what has been the most surprising tactical shift you've mapped out since the channel started covering this war? And if you're referring to, I think you're referring to the Ukraine war, I think, if I'm understanding the question properly. I would say the most interesting tactical shift was probably when Ukraine invaded into Russia. That's probably the most interesting one. Now, of course, I think that has largely come to an end. I think they've generally stopped those operations for the most part, but that was the most wild thing I've seen. Also, a good runner-up, by the way, was probably the Wagner forces turning on Putin to a large degree as well. That was the closest we've ever seen to an actual coup succeeding inside of Russia. So that's probably the most surprising ones, those two right there. But Enforcer, what are yours?
I would say that probably one of the biggest ones, not including those, would be Operation Spiderweb, which was probably one of the craziest tactics I've ever seen used by anybody historically. Like that was like a Trojan horse type thing in real life in the modern day, which you never see for the most part, most of the time. And probably the other major sort of a tactical decision that I've seen at this point, or tactical shift, would be the use of drone warfare by the Ukrainians that has almost completely removed infantry fighting as a norm on the front. We basically never see infantry fights unless if they're being conducted by the special operations forces. And that's because they're the best infantry that they have. Outside of that, we basically see no infantry firefights anymore anywhere in Ukraine because almost everything's turned into drone-based warfare for them. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we're on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Marie Jacobs, who said, would Russia hitting the government buildings in Kyiv, would that spark any response from NATO?
I would say, no, probably not. I would just, like, generally NATO, like, I hate to say it, but NATO, even in Europe, is fairly weak in its resolve to do much. Like, something that would be directly provocatory and require a response, which we've seen multiple times at this point, the Russians conduct on multiple NATO states, is generally left unanswered most of the time. So I'd have a feeling that Russia striking Ukraine's governmental buildings would probably lead to really no response by anybody, even those in NATO who are very much in support of Ukraine. Maybe the best thing they do is send out a strongly worded letter saying that they condemn that in the strongest of means, but beyond that, they probably wouldn't take any further action to try and punish the Russians or respond to the Russians for that sort of an action. So I hope that does address it the best I can, and with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is the Bearded. He said, doesn't it depend on what troops are in Moscow? They send the ones that disagree with them to the front. So who knows their loyalty in Moscow that these troops really have?
Generally, we don't particularly know. And sadly, it's not really the troops themselves, like as individuals that are sent. It's usually their regiment that's sent into Ukraine. So from what we generally know, most of the regiments within the Moscow military district really aren't moved around a whole lot because they like to keep those there for oppression reasons. You know, if there's ever an uprising, they want the best of the best to be able to try and put them down. And also the Wagner coup kind of taught them that they need people around Moscow because you never know if another mutiny is going to happen and they just start driving towards Moscow. So generally from what we would know, they aren't sending the troops there. So we don't know how well their loyalty is because they might be treated well, they might be paid well in the Moscow military district, more so than others to make sure that they don't rebel, or they might be treated the same as the rest of the Russian army, and if that's the case, then their loyalty may be wavering at this point. So I hope that does address that the best that I can. And with that, folks, we've reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to say a humongous thanks to everybody once again for watching tonight. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to run the stream for each and every single one of y'all. We had a peak viewership tonight of 16.1 thousand people, and we had a total viewership of 140,000 people before the stream ended. That's a lot of people, and I got to thank you all so much once again for watching, and we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news from around the world. And if there is some short war news to cover in a short war video tomorrow, Enforcer Matt will be the one making that video. Hey! And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, Heram Slava, long live the Lee Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, we will see you all tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern on the usual nightly War News stream on Sunday. Yeah, tomorrow is Sunday, so we'll be covering that tomorrow, of course. And who knows what will happen tomorrow on Sunday. It could be anything. Today was crazy, so maybe tomorrow something else big will happen. You never can tell these days. But a huge shout out to the over 140,000 people that joined us by the very end of the stream tonight. And we appreciate all of you for joining us once again. And maybe there will be a short video tomorrow. I can't guarantee it because these days the news coming out midday is a little bit sparse. It usually builds builds up right before the stream, which screws up our short war video schedule again. So we're getting a little bit wonky, but hopefully we can get back to it. Yet again, I feel like I'm saying that like a broken record, but hopefully we can. But we will see you all tomorrow. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Heroem Slava, get some rest, and good night.